journey week by week. SNL's best episodes they seek. From Colin to Hanks to Mulaney, counting down moments for you and me. Amazing episodes, epic hosts, the ones that the fans love the most.
Yes, welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another episode of our countdown of SNL's greatest episodes of all time, as voted by you. My name is John Schneider from the SNN. So excited to be with you on this Monday night, as we are every Monday night all summer long, to go through this countdown and reveal new episodes each and every week. We are, of course, here as a presentation of LateNighter.com, and we've got some great guests with us tonight. So first up, let's bring in our co-host, Bill Kenny is here. Bill, how are you?
John, I'm so excited to get into this. I haven't seen TJ in so long, so this is a nice mini reunion of epic podcasters. This is an interesting one tonight, and I may get a little salty. So, forewarning, spoiler alert. We got some interesting ones to talk about.
Yeah, could be the most polarizing episode of the countdown so far. So this will be very interesting to talk through, and I'm excited to bring on this guy for this night, and that is the great TJ Randolph is here. TJ, how are you?
John, I'm doing well, and I'm really glad to be back doing summer coverage. I feel like I haven't done much summer coverage since maybe the third counterpoint.
I thought you were going to say our Ted Lasso coverage or something like that.
Oh man, don't take me. I've been doing the show too long with you guys. We've been doing the show so long that I did an entire podcast, completed it, and I'm still on the show. It's basically like Keenan's short-lived sitcom. But no, it's really wonderful to see Bill as well. Bill, I don't think you and I have podcasted together. Like, I haven't been Bill in so long that I think I only podcast with Kristen Rayala, which is who's delightful. But it is nice to have a little bit of change up, to have the fellas here. I was really intrigued by this batch of episodes. I'll be glad to kind of like dive into that a little bit, but really glad to be able to participate in some summer coverage. And also just want to say, I'm assuming it's already been said already, the new theme. Oh my God. It's great. Like it's and I'm not even like I'm a dancer. I'm like a social dancer. I've been doing it for like 12 years. That's actually one of the styles of songs, like the beats and the tempos. It's actually something that we would use in the dance scene. So cool. Really, really fun vibe. So I don't know who had worked that up, John, but just really wonderful.
Yeah. We same people we work stuff up with for a lot of our themes, and we try different stuff to switch it up over the summer. But yeah, really excited to be with you guys. I will be off the show next week. I won't be here. I'll be back in a couple of weeks, but Bill Kenny will man the show, and we'll have a couple great co-hosts with him. I'm actually getting married this weekend, so that is my reason.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I figured, like, yeah, you know what? Got to bring in one of the most fun guys I know for a little bit of a mini bachelor party before we get things going this weekend. So I'm very excited to have you on with us, TJ. It's a lot of fun to be with you for every single podcast. So this will be a great time here tonight. Let's kick off the show the way that we start every one of these countdown shows, by revealing the episodes that we have given to you so far over the last few weeks. And we're going to get TJ's first thoughts on the countdown so far. So let's bring it up on screen. And here we go. Starting from number 50, we have Patrick Swayze with music from Mariah Carey. That's season 16. We have Michael Jordan and Public Enemy, a very famous episode with MJ hosting in season 17 at 49. Then we have David Alan Grier, season 21 at 48. At 47, we have Anne Hathaway's season 34 episode, her first episode. Jerry Seinfeld's first episode comes in next at 46, season 17. Conan's episode, season 26 at 45. We have Double Duty JT, his Five Timers episode, season 38. William Shatner's episode from season 12 at 43. And then last week, we revealed Justin Timberlake and Lady Gaga at season 36, Christopher Walken and Foo Fighters at season 28, from season 28 at 41, Alec Baldwin with Pavarotti and Vanessa Williams, season 24, that Christmas episode which came in at 40, and then Sigourney Weaver, a very, very important episode to the franchise, season 12 at 39. So we're into the 30s. Bill Kenny, how are we doing so far in this countdown?
We are doing great so far, John. The voters have gotten so much right. So I will start with that compliment right off the top of the bat. The 12 that we've covered have just been really, really good. You know, we thought there might be a little bit of bias because of iconic sketches in certain episodes, but overall, I think we've seen, you know, top to bottom, the episodes themselves being very good. So I will end at that.
TJ, I don't think I'm speaking out of school to say that, you know, if you've been watching you on the podcast over the years, people know you're not necessarily an SNL historian. So I'm not going to say, oh, what is your take on every one of these episodes or how you feeling? But just generally, from what you know about the series, do you feel like this list looks good to you?
I like this list of hosts. I like it more because I feel like, with the exception maybe of Timberlake and Baldwin, and I think we'll touch on that in a little bit as well, I'm definitely more not surprised. These are the types of names that feel a little bit more one-off, or maybe like would have like 1 to 3 hosting stints, that I feel more comfortable seeing in the bottom 10 of a top 50 versus if I were to see them in a top 10. Like, you're right, there's a few episodes here I'm not familiar with, but like the Anne Hathaway and the Killers episode, if it's the Killers episode I'm thinking of, like I was really into the Killers at this time. If it's the one I'm thinking of, like, great performance. Fun fact, quick question actually, but not fun fact, is that David Allen Greer episode his first or second hosting stint?
His first episode, yeah.
That's a good one. I did watch that because I think they brought back Men on Film, and I was raised watching In Living Color. So I actually love seeing. I'm surprised I had that so well regarded. I feel like we don't appreciate David Allen Greer as much as his capability was as a sketch performer. So love that. Conan O'Brien being here, I think, was interesting. And I find it fascinating that in a John Schneider community list, that of course JT would have 2 spots in the bottom 10 alone. There's no way in hell that he's not going to show up here multiple times. I feel like this is rigged.
I have nothing to do with this. I have one
and
vote.
I will say, ranking the 3-way episode with Lady Gaga and Justin Timberlake, ranking that in the bottom 42, something about that feels a little bit disrespectful. But I'm willing to bet this is not going to be the only time we see JT. And I'm sure, because this is season 38, so that's not his first stint.
We have 2 JTs in there. We have him at 44 for season 38, and then we have him at 42 for season 36. Maybe he will pop up again. We don't know. But I mean, that's what's interesting, TJ, is like when you're doing episodes and not hosts, you can get multiple.
You're right. And there's one other thing standout I had here for the Christopher Walken and Foo Fighters episode, which is listed at 41. Bill, I have to ask, do you think the audience only asked for, the audience only voted for this episode simply because of the way that Christopher Walken announces Foo Fighters when he introduces them? I don't even know. I've never seen that episode, but I'm assuming that the meme of it, like, I got to know from our listeners, is it just Foo Fighters? Like, is that the, I mean, honestly, you're getting into at least the top 100 with just that alone. So my bet is that our listeners are very silly. The voters are very, no, I'm kidding. But for me, when I saw that, I was like, that's hysterical. Cause I think the most memed thing about that episode, or the most like prominent thing about the episode, even though it's probably a really great, well-regarded episode, but an interesting bottom 50. I don't see any season 4. Here's the one other caveat I'll add. I'm very intrigued seeing this list because, listeners, for your recollection, the more recent episode that is in this list so far, from episodes 50 to 39 to 50, there's no season 40 Beyond representation. And the reason I find that intriguing is I think in our post-Donald Trump era, while we have still had some great sketches, I do think it's intriguing because I would think this is where you would find maybe some season 40 representation, maybe an Adam Driver episode or something. Like, I would expect to see maybe them a little bit more in the bottom half. So if we see, season 40 popping up, season 40 and Beyond popping up a little bit more in the top, which I think we might talk about a little bit as well, I'm definitely going to be surprised, because does recency bias play into that? And would these episodes maybe actually belong more in the top half? Like, I'm wondering, like, in watching an episode,
that makes sense, TJ.
I'm curious. Yeah,
I think that's a conversation that Bill and I have had off camera after we've been recording these episodes the last few weeks, is that so far, nothing from the last 12 years, and Bill, nothing from the first 11 years yet either. So any thoughts on that, on the gaps that we've had so far, even though we've only revealed 12 episodes?
I'm not really surprised we haven't seen anything from the last 12, because as TJ references, the whole Trump thing has kind of been a shadow over everything. Now, I do think we'll get some certainly there has to be a driver on here somewhere. TJ, I don't know if you know, but I don't know the rest of the list other than what we're revealing tonight. So I don't know anything past tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
John, do you know the full list? I'm assuming
I
you
know
would.
I do know the full list, yes, but
Okay.
not like I've seen it. I don't memorize it, but I know what's to come for the most part. But Bill is completely in the dark.
But yeah, I mean, the first 5, I mean, I think it's harder, you know, we've talked about parsing and figuring out. I think it's harder to parse the first 5 for sure, because there are some great episodes, but which Buck Henry are you going to pick if you're a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old? Like, it's really hard to you weren't there for it. So I think that's why we haven't seen any yet, but I think we'll get some at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. So what do you say we continue on with our list and start our first reveal for the night? So we're going to head to number 38, and it is time to head to something within the last 12 years, something more recent. This is the first episode in our countdown so far that we have actually covered on this podcast, and we are going to go back 1 year to talk about Ryan Gosling and Chris Stapleton's episode from season 49, episode 17, otherwise known as Beavis and Butthead Mania. That was the night where Heidi broke the internet and Ryan Gosling and Mikey Day dressed up as Beavis and Butthead. And that episode made the countdown here in the top 50 of all time. Now, it was certainly an episode that I think most of us enjoyed the night of. It was something really interesting, but this was one that got voted on here to be number 38 all time. So, Bill, let's hear what you think. How do you feel about this one on the list?
I wish this is as salty as I'm going to get tonight, John, but it's not.
Ooh, go ahead, Bill.
Listen, recency bias is playing in here. I had a feeling we would see this because of how high we saw him in the host countdown last year, just based on this one sketch. Sorry, he's a fine host. He's only hosted 3 times. He's not always best in sketches, but he does a good job. But 38th of all time, I mean, this is completely based on the most famous sketch of the last 10 years, you know, going back to David Pumpkins, I would say, that was known outside of our community, right? You didn't have to be watching SNL. You could have stopped watching 25 years ago and you knew about the Beavis and Butthead sketch. So I'm not surprised to see it here, but I am shaking my head just a little bit.
Well, I would argue that this episode contains sort of 2 of the most famous sketches of the last 10 years because it has a Close Encounter sketch in it, and that, you know, with Gosling, so it sort of has that fabric of the episode that you know, would be considered the best of from the last decade. TJ, let's get some overall thoughts from you though. When you saw that this was in this countdown, how did you feel about it?
Yes. So like 2 things actually, because this will show you how quickly I read my email. When I got it, I actually thought the order was reversed. So I thought this was going to be ranked a little higher. I'm a little glad to know it's a little lower. And I also love that it's coming right after we kind of touched on the season 40 representation. I'm of 2 minds here. I agree with Bill, which is like, why this? And by the way, like, our listeners clearly like it. And I'll get into a minute, like, why I think the listeners did it. And I do see it. But when you think about this episode, before having rewatched it, fellas, and answer me honestly, just quick yes or no, did you remember beats from this episode, maybe besides Beavis and Butthead? Did you remember anything else when you saw this on the list recently?
I mean, Get That Boy Back, because that's Trost staple, one of her best moments. But yeah, I mean, top to bottom, no, absolutely not.
Okay. I'll say that the take that I had at the time, I completely forgot. And it came back to me when I watched this, which is, I think, save for one sketch that I absolutely do not like, it has one of the hottest first halves in modern SNL history. I think so. Like, that's one of those things that, like, you start to think about it. This is like I think this takes place the week after the Wig episode, which I think was my favorite of the season. And I felt like the momentum from that week probably carried over to this week. And this was definitely by far one of the best episodes of the season. Now season 49 may not be your favorite season, but still, this is something interesting to talk about here. So does that answer your question, TJ?
It does answer my question. And I think you actually kind of hit close to what I'm hitting here, which is like, okay, so like on the other side, I'm like, it is a little too it's not a little too recent. The question is, of the 50 seasons, what's a great one? I don't know if I would have also voted this in the upper echelon. And that was me thinking about it as an SL fan who watched it with my girlfriend and did remember enjoying it. I love Gosling. Love Gosling. But then watching this episode again, and so looking at it then as a critic, as an analyst, I can see what the listeners were going for. And now, granted, I'm curious to know what their opinion is as well. But, gentlemen, I'm curious what you think here as well. When I watched this, I don't think it was just the first half that John actually hit the head on. I think top to bottom, it's a consistent show. I think it's, with the exception maybe of one sketch, I think there's pretty much not any big duds. There's not any like. Okay, I'm remembering Doctor Please.
I'll say
it's just now. It is now coming back to me. But overall,
we're not doing the hot take shows here tonight, TJ. So we don't have to. We could like skip around a little bit. I'll say like can't tonight, Doctor Please, and Aaron Brockovich to me are like a whole other tier down from everything else in this episode.
I'm gonna disagree with you, but not like harshly but I will be honest. I'll agree with you. I'll agree with you and disagree with you. I'll agree with you because when I saw the Aaron Brockovich sketch, I was like, I don't fucking get like what this is. But however, since the time this episode aired, I actually did watch Aaron Brockovich, loved it. It was like, this movie's great. Then seeing this sketch now, I was like, oh my God, I completely get this sketch. But that means the sketch wasn't like good enough to stand on its legs. You need to have seen that movie and that scene to get it. Okay. So like, I think I'm coasting on that, but I do think there is a good thread through this episode that I don't think it majorly dips. I don't think I'm having a bad time.
I don't think it bottoms out. I think Cantonite is probably like the closest thing to it, in my opinion.
I agree with you. Yes, Cantonite is the weakest point. But what I'm saying is, yes, you're right on the first half. Like, Get That Boy Back, engagement, monologue, Close Encounter, Beavis and Butthead. Yes. And I think Beavis and Butthead gives us not something that's the world's best sketch, but it gives us our Debbie Downer breaking moment, which is the breaking then makes the sketch. Though Debbie Downer, the strength with it, and this is the reason I think the listeners, I'm disagreeing a little bit. Debbie Downer, I think, still stands strong with the sound of the tuba and the writing. I think when you watch that, it still is like, okay, this is great. And I think it works as a sketch by itself. The breaking makes it better. Beavis and Butthead it's a chuckle funny, but without Heidi, does it stand on its legs as much? And I think that's why, I agree that I think this is definitely one of the better episodes of that season. I don't know if I disagree maybe that it belongs in this upper echelon, but I do think someone could make a case for there is a beauty.
Yeah, I don't think you can take Heidi out of Beavis and Butthead. I think that you would need to like judge it as it is. But Bill, I think we need to start with Beavis and Butthead. So like rewatching this, how did you overall feel about seeing it again?
Yeah, this is still something that works for me. That's okay. I think this still works for me. Heidi's face is just pure joy to watch her in this moment. And I think it works overall. I think this is Gosling's best performance of the night. Mikey just putting on a tour de force himself, and Keenan as well, like who's supposed to be this highly educated doctor, but of course he remembers Beavis and Butthead from back in the day, talking about cornholio and sitting next to each other on the couch. He knows all the beats to Beavis and Butthead. This still works for me a year later. Talk to me in 5, I don't know, but at this point, I still love it.
So when this aired, obviously it was a huge deal. We were talking about how this could potentially be the most memorable moment for Heidi's legacy, that she never breaks, and she had this thing where she broke, and it was like, okay, well, this is going to be the most iconic part of this era, and they're going to probably get back to Beavis and Butthead. And I know that they did it on a movie carpet, but we never got to see it on SNL again. So that actually gives me some extra points for like, okay, this lived in the sketch and didn't really live anywhere else. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it again down the road, but they didn't bring it back so quickly, which I think was cool. But I actually do think that sketch completely works regardless of Heidi. I think that there's a lot of things. I think Keenan is really good in it. I think the whole like people writing in on Twitter to comment on what is happening is like pretty good additional writing. I also think that there's like some escalation in that, like Heidi has that breaking moment when looking at Mikey, and then they put them in the chairs next to each other, and Chloe is standing there looking like standing between them. And then, you know, Keenan is like doing his best vintage Keenan reacts to being like, you put them together. And like that whole thing, he really, really guides it along. So there's like so many things that I think are happening here that really work. The visuals,
disagree. Oh God,
really, the visuals are so awesome, TJ. Like there's so many things about this that I think I really got to defend as one of the most fascinating sketches in recent time.
Yes, it's fascinating. Yes, it was even a fun cultural touch point. I really enjoyed looking up those images again of Ryan and Mikey Day on the red carpet for the movie Ryan was promoting at the time, Fall Guy. Because at the time, I actually really wanted to see the movie. Heather and I saw it opening weekend. We loved it. I endorse that movie's great. It's on Peacock. Highly, highly recommend that movie. So it was a fun ride for that. But like, really look at the sketch itself. It was a fun moment of the show and of a live show. But as a sketch, and by the way, as a sketch, who gives a shit? But as a sketch, I don't think it's the strongest sketch. It's silly because all the beats really are is that Heidi is like helping moderate Keenan in the conversation. And then it's just the visual of Beavis and Butthead. And then you also have to know what Beavis and Butthead is. I think if it's just that without Heidi breaking and Chloe breaking, then what you have is something for people who used to watch or knew at least what Beavis and Butthead was. You don't have something maybe that kind of fits all genres, that it reaches in and gets to general audiences because of the breaking, because it becomes fun. But it's such an interesting sketch because obviously it's very fun, but it really isn't a solid sketch to me. But it's a solid, beautiful cultural moment. That was wonderful to see live. I love watching. Rewinding on Heidi's face, breaking and laughing is a really fun moment. But I think that's why I'm so curious for the listeners as to why do you put this in? Because yes, it's cultural, but does it make it one of the greatest episodes? It's more of a question.
It is a question. I think it's a question we have with a lot of these episodes of like, how much does a moment make a great episode? I don't know that this episode is as good as it is simply because of the sketch. Like, I think that there's other moments in the episode that elevate this episode overall. I think if it was just that and a bunch of bad sketches, I think I'd be like, what the hell is this doing here? But I can justify some of it. But I also think this sketch is just truly the dichotomy of what they wrote on paper versus what we saw on screen. It's like, you know, it's one of those sketches that if you're sitting there at your table and you're reading the script, like you don't get it fully, but when you see it play out, it plays out better because it's really like, it's a sketch about, conference on AI. You have a very serious person coming in to talk about AI and its effects on people. You have, and then of course you have the complete opposite visual of the Beavis and Butthead happening there. And then the King of the Hill people at the end. And then the whole thing with Heidi.
I always forget about them. That's funny.
Yeah, it was a great way to end the sketch. And then there's also the thing with Heidi about being like, like, I don't know what Beavis and Butthead is. Like, I was like hooking up in college. And I think like that characterization that they play on her, that she's like too good for all of this, I think is one of those things that really makes this work. So look, no doubt that this episode in actuality is on this list because of Beavis and Butthead. But I think it would be important and beneficial to the listener to talk through some of the other moments that we see here to discuss its value to the countdown. So let's start with the cold open.
Can I add to that note you just said?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
I just want to add a shout out to my boy Ellis, who I love being able to see in the city. I got a chance to connect with him a couple times. But shout out to Ellis in the audience right now. Well, not audience. I think he's modding. He made a note about like one of the better episodes of season 49. Sure, which I agree. And he thinks it's largely because of Beavis and Butthead. But he also notes that he thinks if Papyrus 2 was a part of that live show, which is where we saw at the end of that live show, we saw something unprecedented where SNL told viewers, don't stop watching, go to another place, watch this sketch. Instead of just uploading it without any announcement on like an Instagram or something, they told people on live air to go there. And I think that also makes it kind of an interesting cultural touch point. I do agree with Ellis. If Papyrus 2, which by the way, I'll be honest, I don't think it's that great either. But if it's in there, which featured, I think, Kyle Mooney's first time coming back to the show in a pre-tape, getting cut for time, which I'm honestly 10 out of 10 that happened. I can see a case for it. But what I will make a case for is I do still think you do have a great point about that opening lineup Chris Stapleton did a great job. I honestly think Get That Boy Back, while Beavis and Butthead is a cuter cultural moment, it is the Debbie Downer. I think Get That Boy Back is actually the strongest sketch of the night. Maybe I miss Chloe Trost, but I feel like I can show that one to my friend. Like that is one that is I feel it's greatly universal versus
so
Beavis
good.
and Butthead. Yeah, it's catchy too. I think that's the true strongest thing of this night. And I think that plus Caitlin Clark being on the show at like the height of her like kind of fame. Michael Longfellow had a great piece here at the Close Encounter. Even the engagement was a fun, quirky way to start off the night. And this is an episode that has
TJ, I think we should go through the rundown because I think that would make the most sense to do this. So I will say, to your point, I think if you let's say you were just we're playing Lorne Michaels here. Let's say we're just moving around things in the rundown. I think if you go engagement, Get That Boy Back, then you go to Beavis and Butthead, and then you do Papyrus 2 right before Stapleton performs White Horse, and you move out Can Tonight. I seriously think we're talking about like the best first half in
an incredible run. An incredible run.
So yes, definitely a hit for the episode to not get that one in there, but obviously doesn't make it regardless of them, promoting it on the show. All right, Bill, let's talk about how this episode opens up, because we have the alien abduction sketch, the Close Encounters. Gosling is back. So, I mean, he's back for his third time. He, first time he hosted, very famous. That sketch was absolutely everywhere. So the question did become a little bit that week as we were hyping up the episode of like, could we maybe? I mean, Kate had hosted earlier in the season. Like, would she come back again? But this is the first time we get to meet and see Colleen Rafferty since Kate left the show. How did this play for you on rewatch?
Yeah, it still works. I think Ryan is one of the better people to play off of Kate in these sketches. Obviously, we're missing Cecily, but Sarah fills in admirably in that role. I know people were pissed that week that, well, she got on the spaceship, so how is she back? But like, let's not get ridiculous here with like trying to make this. But yeah, I like this one a lot. I don't know. Ryan has some really good lines, and of course, Kate putting her head through his legs is something that really works. Mentioning that he's wearing the same clothes, and of course, he's worn the same clothes in all three of the sketches that he's in with Close Encounter. So. Yeah, it's a good way to open the night. And even though we had just gotten Kate a few months earlier, I think everybody was still happy to see her.
Yeah, there was a whole bit about the troll nose. And that's fair.
You take out a political cold open, which we've seen in some of these other episodes. You put in a Close Encounters. And I think that majorly boosts this episode when coming back to it. I think that is a huge plus to it. It's hard to kind of deduce the timing. Like, realistically, I think Caitlin Clark and maybe the Barbenheimer monologue are the most like time sensitive thing, because there's an Aaron Brockovich sketch in here. Like, when would this sketch fucking take place? There's a Beavis and Butthead sketch in it. Like, is this taking place in the 90s? Like, Barbenheimer, the Barbenheimer.
Hey TJ, we you're on mute, so just make sure we grab you.
My bad. Sorry, the Barbenheimer monologue takes place a year after that huge culture moment. So I just think that placement, putting Close Encounters at the top and not doing some type of random political cold open, was one of the strongest moves for this as like an episode structure wise. And I think it's what makes it more fun.
Yeah, I actually completely agree, TJ. I think that makes it more interesting. I mean, I don't mind the topical monologue or topical cold open when we get to see things and sort of know this takes place at a certain time. But I think in the moment, it was very refreshing. And clearly, modern take on politics isn't the strongest. So I think that going to this was fun. You mentioned the Barbenheimer monologue. I mean, that also, Gosling, to get him there, he hadn't been on since he played Ken. So I think that was a good thing. I want to talk about engagement, because I think that's a sketch that is probably in a way only a little bit after a year later lost to time. Like, it's one that's completely overshadowed by other sketches in this episode, but it is.
Nobody think about the sketch.
Right, I know, but it is season 49. It is like prime Andrew Dismukes and August White, great writing towards the end of the season, where we're starting to see him rise up the ranks of greatest cast members as he's continuing to put out one amazing sketch an episode. And this time it's with the engagement sketch, where Gosling is just getting engaged to Chloe Fineman, but as soon as she leaves the room to ask Ego to be her bridesmaid, he whispers over and says, "You need to get me out of this. Please help me, Brad." And then, the whole back and forth with, I'm not part of this, you are part of this, Brad, and going off to Istanbul. It is something that I don't think we've talked about since the episode has aired that week, but seriously, because of Jumanji and like other sketches with Andrew, like there's a lot to praise from that point in time with him, but this has to be on the list, Bill, of the things that we talk about with Andrew Dismukes' career.
Yeah, I mean, he ended up basically being the MVP of season 49, and this was one of the main reasons why this run that he had with the Kristen episode, and then this getting to see him play off of Gosling. And again, I mean, I said the Beavis and Butthead is one of Gosling's better pieces. I think this is a really good one for him too. I mean, set aside the fact that he's almost breaking in this constantly. I can forgive that more with a host than I can with a cast member because they're not used to being there all the time. Gosling's kind of become known for being that kind of guy. So I can forgive that. It's almost charming. But yeah, Dismuke's look of dismay as he keeps getting pulled in with this guy that he's just met. I think it's a great piece. And that's why I'm not mad about this episode. I never would have it this high, but we've gotten some really good moments up until Beavis and Butthead at this point.
Yeah. And I actually want to correct myself. Thanks to one of our chat members, because, again, I don't always look at the rundown sheets when we're talking about old episodes. But actually, that was a DiCenzo, Norwin, Fowley, O'Sullivan sketch. So that was actually other writers writing for Andrew, which sort of makes this a little bit different and maybe one of the ones that we don't remember from that time of being the August White, Andrew Dismukes run that we were getting towards the end of 49. So I'll take that back just a step. But I will say that this should be included for performance because I do think his performance off of Gosling is just unbelievable here. TJ, did it play as well for you on rewatch?
Clearly the listeners just heard me yell what, and that was because I was surprised by that. I guess we'll call it a superlative that you just said about this being one of like this deserving to be in his best of. It does not. Like let's stop being cute, because while this is good, this is not like, and it's I'd say it's good and it's even trademark Dismukes. This does not belong in the upper echelon. Two things about this sketch. One, I thought it was a similar sketch where, and I'm hoping the listeners can, John, you can help me remember this. There's a similar structured sketch where I believe the host is like the two women walk away and there's like two guys left behind, and the two guys, like one guy starts just eating a bunch of the cookies. Like there's a bunch of cookies on the kitchen.
Jake Gyllenhaal finale is like a
yes
later.
Thank you. I got it confused with that episode.
And that's an August White and Dismuke sketch, by the way.
And Dismukes is the other person in that sketch, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So those two feel very similar to me, and it's the one that it reminded me of. I don't think this deserves to be in his best of like a Jumanji. It's perfectly fine. And to be honest, I don't think the sketch is that great. I think it does a good job in not dipping too much. It's a fine post monologue sketch, but like this, I don't know if it really should be in like upper echelon for Dismukes, like similar to like even the small moments he had in like the State Farm sketch with Michael B. Jordan. Like I would put that much over like or the Limu Emu. Like even he's in that for 5 seconds, and that's still.
Yeah. TJ, we got you?
I put that way. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I keep like my mic keeps automatically moving. Maybe because I'm so animated. Anyways, the 5 seconds that Andrew Dismukes is in the Limu Emu State Farm Michael B. Jordan sketch, I would put that in his best of, way over engagement, because I think it's a solid performance, but it's not a best of performance. But I think it does a great job in keeping the show afloat, and I do commend it for that.
We talked about Get That Boy Back, which is a country music pre-tape that heavily features Chloe Trost and also Chris Stapleton, who is unbelievable in this sketch alongside all of the people performing.
So good.
He's so good. And I'll also just say it right here. This is like a bonus points for music episode for me, where I think Chris Stapleton's performances of White Horse and Mountains on My Mind are so strong. But as far as this music video is concerned, this was the moment, Bill. I know how big of a fan you are of Chloe Trost, where we were talking about this last year, and we were like, well, there's no doubt that she's going to come back.
Yeah, this felt like this felt like a big moment for her. I mean, she had a couple other ones that we really appreciated, but this was her big pre-tape. She really got to shine here. And yeah, I thought going into May of 2024, there was no doubt that Tros was coming back, and alas, it was not to be. But yeah, everything about this is great. I'm not a Chris Stapleton fan, but I think he is amazing in this pre-tape as well. And everybody does a great job. Ego and Chloe Feynman are also very good in this. And yeah, it's a shame that we don't get more of these from Tros now.
Yeah, certainly. If we're just gonna do the 1-for-1 comparison between this and the tiny baby shoes, like I would choose this. Like this is the type of thing that
Every
I
time.
really loved at the show. So I agree with your point earlier, TJ, that I think this music video is definitely deserving of being talked about just as much as Beavis and Butthead. It was that good. I really didn't care for Cantonite when it aired. I rewatched it now. I also felt like it wasn't anything there.
Same.
So,
let's not even talk about it. Let's just
we could roll through. We could roll
yeah,
through. We
let's
can
just
breeze
keep
through
going.
this, if you want to hear us talk through this episode in detail, we got 3 episodes from that week. You can go back to the archives. Weekend update. You mentioned Michael Longfellow came on as a resident boyfriend. So it was a good stand-up set from him, talking about, don't get excited. It's just a name. We also had an appearance from Caitlin Clark.
Wait, can I just
hold
about the Longfellow?
You can go to 1 second. Just like Caitlin Clark as well, who had just finished her career in college and was about to get drafted into the WNBA. And she comes on to talk about how Michael Che has been making fun of the WNBA all season long. And then we get a bunch of jokes that, she wrote to make fun of Che. So that's what we get from Weekend Update, TJ.
Sorry about that, John.
Good.
Yes. Okay. So this Weekend Update. My God, this microphone of mine today. You guys hear me? Everything all right?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I think this Weekend Update is another case for why somebody would have put this in a really great episode list. The Michael Longfellow episode, the Michael Longfellow piece, specifically, there's a moment where he says, ladies, you talk to us about weaponized incompetence. Can we talk about weaponized competence? For instance, who in the hell taught you what a duvet cover was? Who taught you that word? I didn't know that. I think this was a really fun Longfellow that made me really miss him this past year. Honestly, it made me kind of long for Longfellow. Matter of fact, I think there's a moment where he looks at the camera and he says, ladies, hey, it's Mikey Longs, don't be fooled by the name. And he holds up his fingers to talk about how small it is. This is a very charming early Longfellow piece. When he's a cigarette or when he's Dilbert, this was a fun Longfellow piece. I think that just went beautifully here I think was a solid update, a really solid update. And that Caitlin Clark piece, I think, is another reason why this episode belongs in I would almost put this episode in a top maybe 50 of culture, top 50 SNL cultural moments from the past maybe 25 years. This is a really fun cultural moment. The Caitlin Clark thing, Beavis and Butthead. But honestly, it was a great comeuppance. I think it adds to the energy of this episode to make it what I'd say is we're saying, this is a solid episode. And that's really hard in SNL to do. You got some duds that might be super high and super low. This is, I think, solid, even if there are some duds, but I think it just holds together really well. And I think this Weekend Update does a great job at adding to that.
I agree, Bill. I mean, I think that this is such an important moment. Caitlin Clark has now been beginning and doing really well in her second season in the WNBA. And people are putting her in the same conversation as Tiger Woods, people who just basically have changed the way that they view their sport, that the WNBA ratings have been so high. It is even more fun to watch this now in the context that we know how much she's about to change the game, that I just I'm so giddy about seeing Che make fun of this situation and then for him to get his comeuppance.
Yeah, it's almost like a mini joke swap, a one-sided mini joke swap that he has to do here. I think one of the things that we've seen as a runner through a lot of the episodes we've talked about so far is a solid Weekend Update is kind of key to a greatest episode. Now, I think we've only had 1 or 2 where it really didn't hold up with the rest of the episode. But yeah, this really works with the 2 correspondents that we get in Longfellow and Caitlin Clark. So I love this.
So good. Yeah, really, really good stuff here. Also, yeah, Longfellow's, I watched this. now having just seen his update performance on the Quinta Brunson episode of this season, I'm like, oh man, like it's just crazy how infrequent we get the Longfellow to the camera on update, and it'll just be really interesting to see what happens with him next year. Post update, we get that Dr. Please sketch that we talked about, the cookie crumbles. I mean, that at the time was definitely not a favorite of ours. It's a character that popped up in the Nate Bargatze episode as like a one-off weird like situation, almost like a Will Ferrell Ron thing where it just pops up in different places. Then had his own sketch opposite of Gosling, who was as giddy as can be, even though he laughed a lot in this episode. And that's what he's known for. And then he did also pop up this season very randomly. So I almost feel like this character is like a big inside joke to the show, but it's one that like we're not in on as the audience. And I think that makes it tough to follow. So that didn't really work for me. And then we talked about Aaron Brockovich, which was more of a, you had to see the movie to sort of get the references. And it's a Chloe Harmon piece at the end of the show. So the back half, it really light back half as far as material is concerned. Only 2 live sketches and a musical performance post update. So it's like almost like a little bit of a very like uneven structured episode, but one that is really strong at the top, in my opinion, and pretty, down a level at the back half. And that makes for a tough evaluation. I know, Bill, that when we watched it that week, like I did say, hey, this is a good episode of the show. Is it one of SNL's 50 greatest episodes? I think that like there's conversations to be had. I just would say that it's one of the few that we've talked about so far, to the I guess 13 on the list, that I am saying is probably more question marks than answers.
Definitely more question marks. And it's not even the recency of it, because if you have the start to finish, no duds, as I've said since the first week, we've got at least 2 duds here. I mean, Can't Tonight is just insufferable. Aaron Brockovich just doesn't really hit on any level. Dr. Please, in hindsight now, as you said, coming back a few times in strange places. Maybe, if this comes back like 3 or 4 more times, we'll be like, oh, this is kind of where it started. It's only the second time we saw this. But yeah, overall, there's no way this isn't the top 50.
Yeah, I'd say probably top 5 for season 49, maybe even top 3. There's an argument. I forget how we put this at the end of last year, but I think there's other episodes in season 49 that I would say are probably better contenders for the top 50 countdown. So we'll see if any others do pop up here. TJ, let me get your overall thoughts as we sum up our conversation here and move on to the next episode on our list. How are you feeling now that we talked it through? Gosling Stapleton at 38, too high, too low, or just right?
I do think it's too high, but fun to come back to. Very, very fun. I'm glad I came back to this. It gave me a better appreciation, and I want to get that boy back in like my favorite, one of my favorite sketches lists, honestly. Maybe not favorite, but like fun to show friends when I'm like, hey guys, let's watch this sketch, and I'm like taking their attention for 2 hours.
Okay, there you go. That is the most recent episode on the countdown. We'll see if this ends up, after we go through the next 37, as the most recent episode that we are talking about. But you voted and you got this on the countdown, so we reviewed it. And like I said, if you want more details or our thoughts in live time, in real time, as we talked through this one, full coverage of that available in the archives here on the SNN. All right, let's move on to number 37. And I will say that I experienced a lot of whiplash watching this episode back to back with the next one, which I think, I'll just say it, I'll give the hot take before I reveal it, I think has no doubt at all deserving of being in the top 50. It is universally
goddamn right.
Universally talked about as one of the greatest episodes of all time. Coming in at number 37, let's go back 34 years to Alec Baldwin's first episode from season 15, episode 18, April 21st, 1990. Host Alec Baldwin, musical guest, the B-52s. Bill, it is Earth Day, and we're excited to talk about it as Alec Baldwin makes his premiere on Saturday Night Live. What do you think?
Oh, the whiplash, John, not only of the time warp, but from something that definitely should not have been as high as it was to something that is way too low. This is one of the best episodes ever from start to finish. Season 15, we've talked about many times how great this season is. It's the first time we get Baldwin, the first time we get Goodman, the first time we get Walken. Candy becomes a 5-timer. So like this whole season is full of just very memorable moments. This is an episode as we start to talk about the sketches that the night that Jan Hooks passed away, or the week that Jan Hooks passed away, this was the episode they played on SNL Vintage because of the night that she has here. Yeah, I mean, this is the beginning of an amazing career for Alec Baldwin on SNL.
Yeah, when you send tapes into the Hall of Fame about an episode and be like, this is the one you need to watch for somebody, this is what you send for Jan Hooks, because she has an incredible night here. We will talk about all of it. TJ, was this your first time watching this episode to prepare for the show here tonight?
It was, and I'm wrong because I got excited for the wrong episode that's in this list. That
Okay.
excitement
All right.
is reserved for another episode. So please do not. Yes, this actually for me is probably this is probably the toughest one of the batch. But you know why I hate that I said that? I know that it has more to do with like cultural touch points. But what I can say, because it's not really a relevant thing to this episode, is this is of the older episodes in the first like 25 that I've watched. I would say this is absolutely one of the strongest that I've watched. That even with like the presidential address, I'm like, man, I'm having a tough time with this. And like, just full disclosure, listeners, whenever I watch a Dennis Miller Weekend Update, and I've watched many, I can't. It has to be the fact that I don't get the references, like because I don't get the references, and I also fucking hate his delivery. I can't. I do not. I don't get.
No.
Yeah, I said I do not get why people like Dennis Miller, but I'm hoping the references I hope it's that I don't understand the writing and like what they're touching on. However, what I can say is this monologue was charming. There was a really cute Weekend Update piece for me that I giggled at so much.
Yeah.
There were some really fun concepts in here. Also, one of the longest non-cold open sketches I've ever felt. That I felt the time of this sketch. I was like, God damn, like we're still going. Like there's at least 2 or 3 sketches in here where I'm like, you guys could have ended, but I was like, oh wait, it's old TV. So
When you have a classic,
less
TJ, you
advertisers.
got to keep it going.
Yeah.
So that's what happens.
But what I
here.
can say,
Yes,
is I absolutely see why you would have Alec Baldwin come back a bunch after this. He seems so game. He's having so much fun. And even 35 years later, myself, I'm not even that young anymore, but like myself as a like not as storied viewer of SNL, absolutely sees why this would deserve some sort of historic status. Even me not getting certain references, I see the effort, I see the charisma, I see the fun, I see the energy. The performers are on point. I see there's great concepts and there's some fun writing. And even though not everything here really hit for me, this wouldn't be one of my personal favorites. I fucking respect this episode. And I do think I feel like I get why this would be in that episode, even though it was the one I struggled the most to connect with.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's
But
good to get your
I
perspective,
get it.
because I think there are a lot of people who will be watching this countdown or will be participating in things on our podcast that may not have the experience or living through this episode or getting all the references. So I think it's always good to have that, have that viewpoint as well. Bill, so, to me, when I ask you this next question about like, is there an iconic moment in this episode? I think no doubt, as an SNL fan, there's one, if not multiple. As a casual SNL fan, I don't think there is. And that's what's interesting, right? Is that I don't think that the casual person walking down the street that says, okay, they like watching SNL can name one thing that happened in Alec Baldwin, the B-52s. However, when you are watching this and you are a big SNL fan, the episode just rocks.
Absolutely.
Rocks from start to finish. Yes, I think there's 2 iconic sketches here. And I think part of being iconic is something that even if you're not familiar with it, it's something we talk about all the time. If you would show to a non-SNL or a brand new SNL fan, you would show at least one of these, but I think both of these to somebody who was just coming in and wanted kind of a history of SNL shortened version.
Okay, so I will give you the opportunity to tell us, do you want us to go from start to finish here, or do you want to start somewhere else?
I think we have to start with at least the one, John.
Okay.
I think for sure.
Okay, so
if you don't want to do the other one, we'll go in order. But
okay, well, let's start with the diner sketch. I assume that's the one that you think that we have to talk about. Yeah, so that's the one. So this is the one that everyone says like, oh, if you've never heard of Jan Hooks on Saturday Night Live, watch this sketch where she's playing like a server at a diner, and has this like sexual tension thing going on with Alec Baldwin that is just like unbelievable. The back and forth, the lines, it's almost as if when you watch this sketch, it could be a movie, because it looks like they needed like 50 takes to be able to have the chemistry and the back and forth, but they literally learned those lines this week and had that moment to do it on live television. And it just not only shows you how great of an SNL host and legendary SNL host Baldwin was to become, but it also shows you how incredible Jan Hooks is as an SNL performer. So, Bill, let's get your overall thoughts on this sketch.
Yeah, this is, if you were going to describe slice of life and somebody didn't understand what you were saying, this would be something that you would show them immediately, because, anybody can relate to being in a diner. People have been and she did a waitress character better than almost anybody in the history of the show. She also did a lot of hookers, as she referenced in the 15th anniversary. But, this was something that Bonnie and Terry Turner and Jan would work on. If you go back and watch old episodes of Tush on YouTube, this was something that they were kind of workshopping all the way back to the early 80s. And she has that great rapport with Alec. And it's a WTF moment with Baldwin that, oh yeah, he's going to be that kind of host. But she's also great with Nora. She's also great with Phil and Kevin sitting there as, the dim-witted customers who are in love with her, clearly. And yeah, I mean, just the repartee, the fast talking that goes back and forth, especially between Nora and Jan, is an all-time classic moment in SNL history.
TJ, how did this play for you getting to see that for the first time?
Yeah, and I'm so glad to be on an episode with like somebody like John, who took that time like a few years ago to go through everything, but especially with you, Bill. Bill, by the way, I'm so glad to be on it with somebody like you, Bill, who can have much more of the more recent at that time of airing reference point. Was that within your 35 years of watching the show each week? Was this live for you?
It is. Yeah, I started in '86, so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wow, so it's nearly 40. Oh wow. Okay. So I'm glad I went after Bill, because I'll be honest, when I did watch this sketch, I felt two emotions. One was, I was like, all right, is the star of the sketch the cowboy? Because we start with the simpletons, but it feels like SNL is doing that thing where they really want us to quickly get the world. But it felt like with this episode, especially watching it, that there's a lot of times where it's like, man, it took a little bit more time to really like get to not the point of the game, but like the point of the world. Like where it's like, you got to get somebody to buy in quickly. And it's like, okay, it's a diner, there's a waitress, cool. But like, what are we getting at here? And I'm so glad that you mentioned slice of life, because I definitely had trouble understanding certain beats of this sketch, because at the first part I was like, oh, this cowboy character is really like interesting. That like quick repartee between the cowboy and this waitress is really cool, but we're only with the cowboy for like a third of the sketch, so he's not the star. And it took me till the end to realize the waitress was the star. And I was like, oh, and I didn't even know that was Jan Hooks, because I watched the theme at the beginning and I wrote down like, okay, so like it's these cast members, and I knew Victoria Jackson, and I knew there's a few people I know that like I can see their face. I'm like, I know who that is. Jan Hooks, I know her name, but I still don't know her face. So for me, it was a very interesting performance. And it was an interesting sketch performance-wise, and I did enjoy the fast talking. I enjoyed almost more of the charm of the sketch, more than it felt like it wasn't trying to make me like bust a gut. Not every sketch needs to, but I more just felt like this is like somebody's acting real, but that's not in a bad way. So I definitely felt like I was watching something that I'm supposed to regard as important, but as an SNL like casual, well, I guess I'm not a casual viewer, but as an SNL viewer, I definitely was like, okay, that was fun and it was cool and it didn't ruin the momentum, but it was definitely another case where I felt so distant from this episode, but I still smiled and enjoyed it. And that cowboy the interaction with Alec especially is so great. It's really, really fun. And Phil Hartman as these simpletons. Was it Phil was it Dana that he was with?
I think he was with Kevin.
He's with Kevin Nealon. Okay. Yeah, but just I don't know. There was something so charming about like this waitress going between these conversations, and it's like, yeah, this would just be any day at a diner. And like, I can clearly see like there were just some writers probably at a diner, and that's why they probably cooked this up. So I felt so conflicted because I
Well,
wasn't
that's the
laughing a
magic
ton,
of
but I
it, though,
felt very
TJ.
charmed by it.
Yeah, that's the magic of it, though, TJ, is that like there's the southern charm of it, where you get
Hmm.
Jan,
Yeah,
like that Georgia southernness of her with the Turners, who they're right together and they come in here, and like that is the thing that we always talk about missing slice of life is just because it is such a different pace of a sketch than we would see most of the time today. Like if you go back
yeah,
to the original era and you watch like a Marilyn Suzanne Miller, one of the original writers, write some of the scenes that she's producing, it's so drastically different that it becomes fascinating because it's comedic in its own way. And in a way, it's like watching a sport taking place decades ago, because then you get to see like how different the game is then versus now. And I think when you watch the diner sketch, you get to see like the magic, the positives and negatives. Like it could be kind of slow for somebody who's very used to modern SNL, but it's also so magical in the line readings, the acting performance. I mean, keep in mind, like Alec Baldwin, like we all know him now for his a million appearances on Saturday Night Live and all the things he would go on to do. But at the time, this is his first time hosting the show. He's a movie star. He's coming in and he's like a bombshell, right? Like he's the one who comes in and he's just like charming everybody. And you get to see that in his monologue. He's like just displaying sex appeal, and they use that and write it into the sketches. And I think that is like just a great time capsule moment of like Alec's development as a host, where he had like a very specific niche when he comes on, and he eventually becomes like so flexible in terms of his ability to be a great sketch performer, as he will go on to host 16 more times. So I think that this is just an absolute all-time classic. So let's go top to bottom on this one as we'll go through. So we do get a George H.W. Bush cold open from Dana, a pretty good one here. I mean, he's right in the midst of 1,000 points of light, all the things you're going to get to see from George Bush Sr. as we see Dana just really do his thing to open up the show here. Bill, any memories that you have about this one? I'd say probably for me, it's the eye drops, but anything stand out to you?
Oh, that just was funny.
I think the hand motions. I mean, he always has that as something he does. But when he starts, not here, but here, not good, but bad. I mean, they kind of mix together. I'll be honest, because he does do this a lot. He does do this a lot as the cold open. So, there's nothing that stands out particularly in this performance that makes me remember it. But I mean, of course, getting right back into it, getting to see it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, this is Dana being Dana. We're about 2 years into him doing this on a full-time basis.
And this is the first time I'm watching a George Bush cold open with Dana since I just watched all of the James Austin Johnson Trump cold opens from this spring. And I definitely see the comparison. I see like they're just going for the standard same thing. These are the lines, these are the tropes or whatever, and they're hitting on that. And I have to wonder if that's like Dana Carvey influence on what they're going for with the Trump second term. And we'll see how that develops in season 51. But that was really interesting for me to see. TJ, you mentioned this monologue is super charming. So Alec Baldwin's going to come out and he's going to win the audience. It's so funny, right? You think Alec Baldwin now is an SNL host. Like it's so weird to see him come out for the first time and people don't know him as an SNL host. And he decides that he's going to win over the audience by posing and being charming to them. And you get lots of shots of, just him turning to camera and going from the shoes to the head. So anything here work for you, as you said?
Honestly, yeah, this worked. He charmed the hell out of me. It reminded me a little bit of the Adam Driver chill monologue, which I know this came long before that, obviously. But it just reminded me of like, hey guys, we're just gonna take it easy. And I just love that Victoria Jackson has to drag him off stage in order to get him to like stop trying to give us attention. I thought it was a very cute way to open the show. It when I was watching it, it did make me wonder, wait, is this Alex first? At the time when I was watching, I was like, is this his first? Like, because I feel like if it was his second, he would have like said it or something. So honestly, I was like, yeah, this was cute. It was great.
Green Hilly is a sketch that will take place next, and you get to see, Mr. Cherrywood, played by Alec, who has basically sexual tension with everybody. He makes out with anyone he encounters, all the women in the sketch. He'll have this, great visual moment of making out with Phil Hartman and then eventually a dog. And I'd say that this is a sketch I definitely remember as always being super fun. I know that there's the moment of like, two guys kissing, but it's also really just about the character that Alec's playing. And I thought that he is, to kick off the night. It's not the best thing we're gonna get in this episode, but it is a really fun sketch, Bill.
Yes, it is, and they're leaning into his handsomeness early on here, but luckily we kind of get away from that a little bit, and it's more about the sketch writing. But you can hear it in the audience, like the shock, because this is about 10 years before SNL turned full on. Hey, we're making two guys make out. Isn't that hilarious? This was unique for 1990. This was not something you saw on any kind of TV. I mean, it's a quick moment. It's not the main joke of the sketch. That comes a minute later with the dog. But the fact that he's charming everybody in the building is really, really funny. So, and I can still hear that instrumental music always playing.
Yeah.
Well, it's because, to be clear, the joke here is escalation. It's that like he's making out with people that he shouldn't be making out with. So he goes from making out with the women that maybe are with another man. And then eventually he'll make out with the man and then the dog. So it's like sort of like building upon each other, as opposed to the joke just being completely surrounded of like, hey, this is a guy making out with another guy. TJ, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no. And so like overall, I was like, this is a great post monologue sketch. This is a lot of fun. It's a great wrap up. I think ending on the dog is the good, funny note. And I almost wish I wasn't born in the time. Sorry, I almost wish I wasn't living in the time I'm living in now, because I know that because I grew up with Quagmire. All right. So like in Quagmire, by the way, while he's still horrifying, that shit is still funny to me. Like, obviously not the actions done by a real person, but like I can watch old Family Guy any single day and laugh my ass off. But like, obviously, whenever I watch something I'm not grandfathered into, I'm like, oh damn! I know this is funny, and I know this is a time where I would have loved this and like found it funny. But I do hate that I live in a more like socially aware time where I'm like, oh yeah, like two guys kissing, like I don't know, like it doesn't hit me in the same way, because I saw a very similar sketch to this where it was almost like beat for beat. This was like the music. It was like a live sketch I was watching in the city in New York City a couple months ago. They did the music ramp up. There's somebody who has sexual tension with everybody. Really fun sketch, except instead of him having connections with guys and that being like the big comedic beat, the comedic beat in this sketch was that he that he wanted to make out with his mom. It started turning to family members more than to like other sexes. And I think, oh yeah, that's like today's version of like the Green Hilly at that time. It was also so like for me, I was like, oh man, I kind of wish I could appreciate this in the way that I know that I would have in that time. But I still, since I can clearly like, I don't know, not be like an idiot, I clearly see what it was and what it's trying to be. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. Like I can respect it as what I think it was trying to herald itself in 1990.
Next up, we get Alec Baldwin with a Marlon Brando impression. He's playing his character from The Wild One, but instead it's the environmentally conscious one. And it's a lot of like, you think like tough biker, group, but they're talking about, the environment and wanting to fix that. And a lot of the subject of this and other parts of the episode will be talking about Earth Day, which I guess was like a big deal then. And then in New York, there was, a big Earth Day concert, I think that was on its way. And there's a joke at one point made towards it that, he's going to go to the Earth Day concert, and there's a huge, round of applause. So this probably felt like more, about the like what was happening at the time and what people were talking about then. Does that ring a bell, Bill?
Yeah, it's really interesting with the Earth Day stuff. I mean, I clearly remember this very well because Earth Day started in the 70s, but there was something in 1990 that just kind of triggered this huge thing that it became more of an event. I can remember I was in high school at this point, and we went out of our way to promote Earth Day and do things like that. And it was the first time that I really had heard of it as a teenager. And they just go full tilt into this. Now, this sketch, this is probably the one TJ was talking about, goes on for a very long time. And
oh my God, yeah,
it's no Pepsi syndrome, but it goes on for a long time. I think the main takeaway from this is getting to see Baldwin do an impression. He does a great early Brando, and Victoria is very good in this too, which is not always the case. And but she really holds her own here as the girlfriend, or the kind of wannabe girlfriend of Marlon Brando. So overall, not the best, but I think this works okay.
And it includes the first actual sketch appearances of Rob Schneider and David Spade before they were
Yep.
cast members. They were hired as writers towards the end of the season. So it was
I
like,
knew that
oh,
was
okay.
him. I thought I was bugging. I was like, is that?
Yeah, they appear here. I mean, it's right before the Bad Boys era will start to begin, beginning with the start of season 16. But we're headed towards, that like end of second golden era, crossing over into the Bad Boys era. And this is one of those episodes where we get some, Easter eggs of getting to see them here in retrospect. So, TJ, any thoughts on this one besides it just being a pretty long one for you?
Yeah, no. I think this was one where it was a little tougher to engage because I know I watch a lot of pop culture, so I've heard Marlon Brando referenced many times, but to this day, I still haven't seen like the Superman movie, so I still haven't seen a Brando film, but I know his name and his regard, so it's just by coincidence. I will watch a Superman movie at some point. But like, so for me, I was like, shoot, I'm not getting the reference, but I was like, okay, the other piece of this for me then is like, all right, it's like a guy who's super serious about the environment, but he's in a biker gang. That's like a fun juxtaposition. He'll beat you up and then tell you not to litter. Like, so, okay, like that's cool. He's Captain Planet, but he'll kick your ass. All right, cool. But it didn't really do that. And it then felt like, okay, but then like, I just felt like I would have appreciated the truncated version of this, not from the critique of like, oh, this sketch is too long, more of I was trying to understand what point it was trying to make. But it is funny to me. Two things. One, there's a moment where I think Phil Hartman grasps a baby by the head. It's just he just full on palms his baby. I don't know why. It makes me laugh very much. It's funny. But two, this was one of I think 3 or 4 Earth Day references in this episode, which is just a fun little thing. Like, why are we repping for Earth Day so much? But okay, like sure. So I guess that's my overall is that like I see what it was trying to do, but question for you, was this was not a pre-tape, correct? Because like they had a lot of set changes. This was a big endeavor, it felt like. Was this was
I think this was all done live. This is one of those things where they just switch sets around the studio. Yeah, and it's and again, that's really interesting in the context of the rundown where we get 4 live sketches basically in a row, and they're running around the studio dealing with all of that. Urban Shocker in the chat says that they think that NBC had a network-wide initiative about Earth Day around 1990, so that certainly could have had something to do with that. It definitely plays into this episode. Next up, we get 2 live sketches before our music, and I'll sort of talk about them back to back because I think that makes the most sense here. This is a sketch called Garbo I Knew, which is about Greta Garbo, who passed away that week. And Greta Garbo, most known for playing sort of silent, tragic characters. And we get this sketch where Alec Baldwin is talking about the Greta Garbo that he knew in his character, and the gestures that she is making to indicate how he is going to answer the phone and explain what is going on is so funny. And Jan Hooks will ultimately end up on the chandelier, which is a visual that I can never forget from that sketch. And to me, Bill, I wonder if this is the other iconic one that you were thinking of a little bit, because again, this is another great example of how strong Jan is, because she is running all over this sketch, having so much fun with it. I think it is a fantastic moment for Jan Hooks.
Yeah, this is the other one that I was referencing. This is a great two-hander. Again, we get to see Baldwin just perform the hell out of this with Jan. The whole charades idea of it, 5 hours, weeks, days. No, and then she's moving her hand down. No, just days. Yeah, her on the chandelier for sure is something that sticks with you. Greta Garbo had died that week, and that's why they're kind of leaning into this, which is kind of crazy because I mean she was an amazing actress, but she's about 94 or something like that when she dies. So like I'm not sure who this is for. I guess they felt a need to cover this because of how famous she was. But yeah, this is one that really sticks out, and Jan plays this so well.
I think this is a sketch that you don't actually have to know who Greta Garbo is to really get what's going on here.
Yeah.
And that's why it works, because I think the Jan, like I said, is so good. The chemistry between Alec and Jan is palpable that you'll end up seeing later in the episode with Diner. And I mentioned Oli in New York, which is the back-to-back sketch here, which is a sketch featuring Joey Adams and Cindy Adams, played by Phil Hartman and Nora Dunn, who are these New York comedians. And they're talking about like the news and gossip in New York. And they do mention that Greta Garbo died that week. So I think it's like relevant to what is going on in this episode. But TJ, you did make a face when we were talking about this one. So did this not play as well for you?
No, I made a face because one of the listeners was talking shit. No,
Oh.
the Garbo I knew, however, sorry, just speaking candidly.
Focus on
whatever.
us. We're making podcast magic here.
Yeah, one of the listeners also recommended a couple of Marlon Brando movies, and I was like, "Oh, I think it was Robert. I wanted to kind of know what's a good Brando film I should check out." And he said The Godfather and Streetcar, so I was all right. But Garbo, I knew. Only thing I'm going to say, so we can just keep moving on. I really like the charades bit, and I felt like that helped because at the beginning it felt like, okay, this is another case of actors and writers finding old Hollywood very funny, which it is, but it's also sometimes a little inside baseball when I don't know who that is. I know who Liza Minnelli is, and I know people like making fun of her because she's old Hollywood. But this is oh shoot, I've heard of Greta Garbo, but I don't know. But that didn't matter whatsoever. So I just like the charades. That's all I say. It was very fun. Oh, and this sketch. This is another case of in this episode where it felt like, Jesus, is this episode an hour and a half? Because it felt like there was a point in the sketch where she says, "Hey, I want to be alone." And I was like, you can end it there. There is your ending. Yet it keeps going. But I will be honest, her sitting in the lamp was a pretty great visual. And I was like, all right, it was a great visual. It was great. And I was like, all right, I'll let it slide. But I was like, you could have ended, but I think I see why you kept it going because you want that lamp shot.
It's also an angle that we don't really get on SNL very much. I think about how there's a cue card in the rafters now from the Beautiful Boys sketch or something like that. It's just an angle that we don't really get. It's a really fun way to do the sketch. Phil Hartman and Nora Dunn being together in that sketch is kind of fun. The one following this one, Nora will famously not appear in the Andrew Dice Clay episode that will follow this one, and then we'll have minimal appearances in the season finale after that. So this is sort of one of the last main roles for Nora in the show, opposite of Phil Hartman, and we don't really get to see that pairing too much. So I thought that this was an interesting one. B-52s, pretty iconic performances here, just to get them here as a great pairing. Yes. I mean, they were at the SNL 50th concert. Only adds to the legacy of the B-52s on SNL. So if you're thinking about trying to find your best episodes, your greatest episodes, your most iconic episodes, I think that bonus points here, agreed across the board.
Oh my God. And also seeing them, I'm so glad that I saw them at the Homecoming concert because yes, I knew Rob Lockster and their couple of hits, but seeing them at the Homecoming concert and then watching this, I think was great context for me as somebody who hasn't always seen everything in the show, because what a fun performance. I was like, shoot, am I going to start listening to the B-52s? And I very well might. Cosmic Thing was such a fun, energetic tune. I was like, God damn, I enjoyed this. Actually, oddly enough, this was in my top 3 favorite things of the night. I just enjoyed the music so much here. And I think they did an excellent job.
Yeah, really cool stuff from my Uncle Fred in the B-52s. We talked about the big picture in a previous weekend update, so we don't have to talk about that here, but we could talk about Kevin Nealon, who does the news from 10 feet away. Bill, I couldn't help but think about how you referenced Sarah Sherman's appearances in her first season and referenced this and going back to see Kevin Nealon in the news from 10 feet away, who starts off slow and really ramps up here with the dry humor as he starts to get, reference himself as giving him a token appearance on the show. He doesn't appear very often. And I think by this point, Kevin was appearing pretty often, so it doesn't exactly ring true. But I always love this bit. I think it's a great change of format from a Dennis Miller weekend update, and it was very cool to get to see it again.
Yes, there's an eerie similarity to last time, John, for sure. One of the lines that he says. But yeah, this is great. Every time Kevin's on update, it's as a correspondent, it's fantastic. He has so many great characters that he can bring. And this is probably my favorite. I think this gets even above Subliminal. I love that we've been talking about Kevin Nealon for 3 weeks straight now. So that's really great. Dennis, TJ, I will agree to disagree. I think Dennis is one of the best of all time. I've said that. I love
that's okay.
I love the Ernest goes to jail joke about making $15 million, and they start playing "This Is the End" by The Doors, and the lights go down, and he's just staring blankly into space, like it's the end of society. Those movies were so terrible, man. So terrible. It has to
be a timing thing. That has to be the reason I don't fuck with him when I.
No, I love Dennis Miller on Update. I think, but also it could be one of those things, TJ, that I think to fall in love with Dennis Miller on Update, you almost need to watch the show chronologically, because when you see
Okay,
what comes
that's
before that
interesting.
for years,
Yeah.
and then Dennis comes on to SNL like season 11, like after what we just got, you're like, oh wow, he's the coolest person in the entire world. And I'm just talking about like seeing him on Update in that
Okay.
time, but like it is like there's some swagger that he brings to it that I think is really fun. He absolutely commands the Update stage and makes it his own thing. And maybe it's not like everyone's favorite version of Update, but like in real time, he like brought Update back. Like I wonder if Dennis Miller doesn't take Update in season 11 and the show ends up being like good again at some point, if they just eliminate Update completely. Like it's certainly possible. So his contribution is certainly valuable to me.
Okay. I respect that. Thank you for that clarification. I do. The only thing I'll add about this is that the news from 10 Feet Away also for me was, I think that was my actual favorite thing in the night. That was for me almost so timeless. That was such a cute thing. Like what a great narrative. That for me is like one thing I'm like, okay, that's what I take away is I want to show somebody the news from 10 Feet Away. I think that was very charming. This episode had a lot of charm, like a lot of charm to it, but that was fucking funny to me. Like there's a similar Family Guy bit where Peter starts narrating his own life, and it just kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Just really cracked me up.
Speaking of charm, it's so fun to see John Lovitz on SNL as a cast member. This is right near the end of his career. He does like a very silly sketch. I mean, if you watch John Lovitz's trajectory, he will eventually get overshadowed by Dana and Phil and like everyone, Mike, like he's going to get overshadowed eventually. And this is really near the end of his career. He didn't know it at the time. We thought he might be coming back for season 16 and that he goes off to do a movie and isn't asked back, or is told he can't do both. But basically here, he is playing a guy who would like to follow his dream and make a nude talk show. So he goes to talk to the TV execs and he says, I need a nude talk show. I think it's going to be at the top of the ratings. So he starts with a nude talk show opposite of writers Conan O'Brien and Greg Daniels, where we get this amazing visual of them all naked together, bottom of the ratings. Then he will say, okay, give me one more chance. I think I know how I'm going to change it. He goes opposite of Jan Hooks, who are both naked on the talk show, and has some like sexual talk with them. And it just, goes to a whole award show. And it's a really ambitious sketch, Bill, that they put together for this one, the new talk show.
So ambitious. That's the first thing I wrote down about this. And yeah, getting early Conan, even more impressive getting early Greg Daniels pre The Office, obviously pre King of the Hill. Nobody knows who he is at this point. I mean, some people might have had an idea of Conan because he's appeared in more sketches by this point in the background, and he's got the the big red hair and things like that. But yeah, Greg Daniels popping in there. And I know that 16-year-old me loved seeing Jan Hooks sitting naked in a chair. Leave that part to the side. Leave that part to the side. The board of TV shows, all those names are just so great, including two that we actually get in sketches, John, which I'm sure you know, right? Having just watched everything over again recently, but we get Dukakis After Dark, which appeared in season 15, and The Insane Idiot, which comes a couple years later. So yeah, a lot of fun here, and it's a good way for Lovitz to kind of wrap everything up.
Yeah, it goes a lot of different places. You get this whole award show where we get to actually see people perform from the TV shows that were listed on the board. Like I think it says the Brooklyn Swami, and then we get to see Victoria Jackson like play that later. So like it is a very, very fun sketch that again is probably one of those that people don't talk about from this episode. But good to get some late career Lovitz in here. TJ, did you enjoy this one?
I did. Overall, yes, because like, no, I don't want to say because, but like, overall, the answer is yes, because it just felt like, man, they're going for, aren't there like, just like early in the show, there's like 3 set changes in this sketch. I'm like, oh my God, like I was like, he has the pitch meeting, he has the award show, he has the show twice. I'm like, this is another one that made me wonder, shit, is this a pre-tape? Because like, they're like, I'm assuming they could fit live. But it felt like they're doing so much that I was like, oh, this must have been in that era where people were like, how is it live? But I was like, oh my God. Like the notion of them literally announcing the award categories and having a bit that was probably 20 to 35 seconds per category. Per nominee within the category. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Fun little fact. I just went to the Tribeca Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. Saw some like short films. Really had a very nice time. Stupid mic. Sorry about that. This sketch felt like I was like, you know what? Just you're going for it. You're trying to condense it for the show. Just give me the 10, 12-minute short film comedy that you're trying to do. Like, just I want to see this like submitted because I just felt like you're really trying something here. And I would love to hear this guy's just like narration about more of this process of him trying to get there. I want to see the documentary, but it's a documentary he directs himself, and it's like a Nathan Fielder-esque way. And so it's just, I don't know. I think there was definitely some fun stuff here. But again, I think this was like the third Garbo mention. No, I'm looking at the wrong notes. Anyways, definitely very interesting. And that Conan, seeing young Conan O'Brien, I was like, oh, this is cute. Again, another charming little moment from this sketch here.
Well,
From the
you may
show.
have noticed. You may have noticed in this sketch, or sorry, in this episode, no pre-tapes. Very similar to the Patrick Swayze episode that we talked about, which will take place just 6 episodes later. That one also had no pre-tape. So just an era where if they didn't have a good pre-tape, they weren't probably producing it, or they ran out of the commercials for the season, and that was it. So really fun stuff here from Lovitz.
All the sketches are like 10 minutes.
True. Yeah. Well, so basically back half goes from new talk show. We go to the diner sketch that we talked about. We get another performance from the B-52s, and we will end on the debut of a Mike Myers character, one that is probably lesser known. It is a middle-aged man who will come in to give advice of, anything, going on that someone who's middle-aged would know about. He's a middle-aged man, and he's a little bit sensitive. You get the whole, you're looking at my gut, aren't you? Well, I'm working on it. And very classic of the times where we have a character with a theme song, and this is like a really fun way to end the night. So I figured let's go to our own middle-aged man. Bill, your thoughts on this sketch?
Are you looking at my gut? Yeah, listen.
I'm working on it.
This feels like an absolute forgotten moment for Mike Myers with all the big moments that he gets on the show. I love this run of sketches. This isn't the strongest one. I think the one with Farley as the drinking buddy is probably the best one out of all of them. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. I mean, in this era, we get middle-aged man and we get grumpy old man. So like there's something about making fun of the next generation that SNL really embraces in the second golden era.
Yeah, it is very simple, but very well done. TJ, you seem to really like this one.
I did like this one, and the thing I can't stand is that this is the one I have to be reminded how much I enjoy it. But like thinking about it again, I'm smiling because I'm like, man, it's such the epitome of like these guys are in their late 20s and 30s and just haven't hit it yet, so they have no idea. But it's such a great little bit of fun. It also made me realize that holy shit, SNL really loved doing theme songs for people, like for there's so many theme songs. I think there's the environmentally conscious one as a theme song. There's like, does it only in New York have there's like openings and themes where I'm like, oh shoot, how am I gonna know the name of the sketch? They fucking tell you in nearly every sketch in this episode. I'm like, okay, cool, I can write it down in my notes. But yeah, simply put, like the fact that middle-aged man, one of his missions is going to help a man with impotence. Like there's just some like he's just spitting old guy facts, and I think the theme in this sketch did a great job at helping you understand the game. Your buy-in is immediate. Like this is a sketch. Honestly, you can show it to anybody. Like it doesn't matter the age. This is a pretty evergreen sketch, I would say. So yeah, I think this was solid, and I think it was another thing that kind of helped me enjoy the night.
If you want to see interesting sketches with theme songs from this time, we'll send you a copy of Lyle, the Effeminate Heterosexual, which that is.
God, what is that?
Yeah, so we'll send that to you after the show. My favorite line from this is that he says that he's not his dad, retired man, and the difference between him and retired man is that he knows how to hook up a VCR, which was a great.
That was such a funny line.
It was so good, so good. All right, let's sum up our thoughts on Alec Baldwin and the B-52s. I'll just say this right here. No doubt, out of all the episodes we talked about, this to me is the greatest one so far. Bill, how do you feel about it?
Yes, same here. Banger after banger. The only one that you could even have any kind of quibble with would be how long the environmentally conscious one is, but it's still a very, very good sketch, and there's no duds. Great musical guests to up the ante here. Baldwin showing why he's going to be back for the next 35 years. This is such a fantastic episode, and getting to talk about Jan is always a pleasure.
Yeah, to me, you could easily have had this one in the top 20. I think there's certainly an argument there. I think so. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which episodes made it in front of this one. TJ, your final thoughts on Alec Baldwin, the B-52s?
Yeah, when I look at it again, especially after talking about it with you guys in the context, I see why this one is much stronger than a Gosling. Like you and I both, we all know that the only reason that this one is not higher is because like it's like what I talk about all the time. I have a recency bias. Like that's the only reason. This is a strong as hell episode, even for things I may not have connected with, except for the only in the New York thing. I just didn't like that. Like I think that's probably the weakest part of the episode for me. But like, yeah, you guys could not have summed it up any better. Phenomenal. Like, what a run. Oh my God.
It's so good. And you could just watch this one. And again, Alec Baldwin's going to change a lot over the years, but it is very cool to see right away how established he is as a host and how he's going to be one of the greats. So great stuff here from Baldwin at 37, his premiere episode on Saturday Night Live. All right. Let's keep going. Let's go to the next one here. And speaking of premieres, for number 36 on the countdown, we're going to head to one of the best premieres ever for a lot of people. So we will move back forward in time. We're going to go 23 seasons later to Seth MacFarlane and Frank Ocean, the premiere from season 38, episode 1, September 15th. 2012. And we,
let's fucking go.
Yeah, TJ alluded to some Family Guy before, so it's certainly going to come up over here as we see Seth MacFarlane host the premiere of this episode here at number 36. So TJ, you must be very pumped to talk about this one.
This is, listeners, this is one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's one of the episodes that I believe is sitting on my PlayStation 3. That shows you how long ago I watched this episode, because there was a point when I was starting to get into SNL, I would buy episodes off of the Sony like media store on the PlayStation 3. And I believe this is probably the last one that I bought. I also bought like the Zach Braff episode, the Steve Carell, Jason Segel, really because I'm a fan of sitcom stars, clearly. But this was like, oh my God, I was like 18 or 19 when this episode came out. Frank Ocean, people were like putting respect on his name, and he's definitely one of the best R&B stars we've ever had. Like Seth MacFarlane, for me, top to bottom, I hold him in incredibly high regard. I'm a Family Guy fan. I'm an Orville fan. I love Seth as a person. Like, I don't know. So for this episode, for me, this is what cemented him in like my fandom, but it was also just, I think there's so much great stuff here, top to bottom. Drill Sergeant, Puppet Class, Obama for America, the amazing monologue. And I think, however, there's a couple things in here that are only working because I was alive at this time. So fun fact, I said I was probably about 18. And I say that because this was the first year that I was able to vote. So I remember things like this cold open, because I remember the Romney and Obama race very much, because it was my first time like being able to be a voter. So just really, really glad to that this was in here. Would not have expected it, because I don't know how much people think about it, but this makes me feel solid, because like top to bottom, what a strong episode.
I'm thrilled this is in here, because this takes place immediately, a few months in real time, but immediately after the season 37 finale, where we lose Andy Samberg and Kristen Wiig. And there's a lot of question marks of like, what will the show look like? Cecily Strong and Tim Robinson and Aidy Bryant are all hired for this episode. And we get some new cast members that we'll see here for the first time. Fred Armisen is no longer going to play Obama. We're going to see Jay Farrow play him. So that's, something that we'll talk about as a storyline of this episode. And Bill, so, a couple things. Number one, it is the second season 38 episode. So we obviously got Justin Timberlake as well, a little bit lower down on the list. So season 38, I think ultimately ends up being a really good season in the show's history. And this was a great start for it. And, we talked about Jan Hooks and her, highlight reel from that, episode that we just had with Alec Baldwin and the B-52s. I think this is one of the greatest episodes of all time for Bill Hader. Just completely all over the episode, showing why, you didn't necessarily miss Kristen Wiig, because you had someone as strong as Bill Hader, who's probably a top 10 cast member of all time for a lot of people, and he dominates this one. So let's get your thoughts on Seth MacFarlane and Frank Ocean being here at 36.
Yeah, I love this. I'm a huge Family Guy fan. I've been watching since the premiere of right after the Super Bowl in 1999. So I've been with him the entire ride. I was so excited when they announced this. And I was wondering how he would do, because we've never really had somebody in his position. He hadn't really been in any movies. I mean, they had done Ted, but that was him front and center is not something that we had seen a lot of at this point. And Hader, as you said, getting Sudeikis back, which was a question mark all summer long, having him come back to do Romney was super, super important to the politics of this year. There's so many all-time sketches in this episode, and what a great way to start this season.
And Seth MacFarlane probably, yeah, of course, yeah. Seth MacFarlane probably is one of the greatest one-time hosts of all time, just based on this episode and seeing everything that happens here. TJ, go ahead.
I love this adoration for him, and I love what Bill said, because I was telling Heather about this last night, because I watched all the other episodes that we are covering here like before, but she was out of town, and she got home last night, and I was like, I hadn't rewatched the episode in a while, and I was like, I want her to rewatch it with me. And I explained to her the whole like fun thing that at this time in 2012, which was the summer, which was the fall after Seth MacFarlane's Ted film had come out, it was his first time directing. Fun fact, he stepped away from Family Guy in 2011. That's why it hasn't been good since 2011. He stepped away from Family Guy, and he hasn't written on the show in probably over 10 years. He just tells him, hey, don't insult the celebrity that I'm friends with. But anyways, he didn't write. He goes, directs Ted, and that movie was a big comedy at the time, the summer after Bridesmaids. And for him to come in was so interesting, because Family Guy was huge at the time still, but for them to take not only a guy who directed a director, but then to also take a voice actor. I would wager, but I don't have the history here, that he's probably the most prominent voice actor to have ever hosted the show. We have people like Tom Kenny, Tara Strong, and yes, I know there are people like Pat Oswalt who voice things, but we know them more as live actors than we do as voice actors. So I would think that he would probably be the most regarded voice actor of any time to have hosted the show. So I think to have a voice actor in this director host, I think it was such a fun, unique choice, because Seth MacFarlane he's trying to become like Frank Sinatra III as well. Like a talented guy that has such a great repertoire. And for this to be sort of his Justin Timberlake and The Rock moment, which is like, this is the moment he went from being one thing to the thing that kind of catapulted him, I think, into a stardom. He starred in a movie as the lead that he directed 2 years after this, A Million Ways to Die in the West. And he did The Orbit, where he's the lead, as the face. We see Seth MacFarlane's face so much more now. Whereas before this time, you only saw Seth MacFarlane's face, which was like acne covered, and he was wearing glasses, if you had Family Guy on DVD and you watched behind the scenes footage. So this episode is so interesting for his career, to take him from behind the animation tables, behind the voice booth, and to catapult him into just becoming this beautiful multi-hyphenate. I think it's such a wonderful thing in his career, because I think this moment is just like such a big game changer for him.
It's such a good choice for the premiere. It was really, like I said, there was a lot of people coming into this episode apprehensive about what the future of SNL would be, knowing that this is probably the last hurrah for some really big names. And they could have gone a lot of different places. And the fact that they went with Seth, I think, ended up being an absolute home run. We'll start with the cold open here and talk about what we see, which you said, we're right, deep in the 2012, election, like all of the coverage of that. And another big question mark on Saturday Night Live is like, well, Fred Armisen was playing Barack Obama. Jay Farrow does a great Obama impression. So how are we going to make that transition happen? And if will this happen? This ends up being Fred's last season, and he's going to depart the show. So obviously he's not going to play Obama into his second term. And we get this really nice moment to open up the episode where, Fred Armisen is playing one of the staffers of Obama and says, wouldn't want his job, right? And then hands it off to Jay Farrow as Barack Obama, who comes on and does all of the things. And you're like, right away, you're like, wow, this is so much better than what we were getting before. And I love Fred, but it was one of those things it was a complete game changer to have him do that as the impression. And the concept of this cold open here is just simply that, Obama believes that Mitt Romney is the secret weapon that he needs to win the campaign, because he's just going to shoot himself in the foot by all of the things he's saying at his campaign rallies, where we see Sudeikis as Romney. Bill, your thoughts on the cold open we had here in 2012?
Yeah, it's interesting because SNL doesn't typically do this, but there were so many problems with Fred's impression not the least of which that he was not African American. But it wasn't a great impression. Just say that straight out. But most of the time when they replace somebody, the person is left to cast. Other than the whole W parade after Farrell left, we don't really see this a lot in the show's history. And it's a perfect semi-meta moment to have Fred say that line, show that he's cool with the transition, and Jay comes out and just kills it. I mean, he's been on the show a couple years. We've seen some great impressions from him at this point, but this just brings the house down. And cutting to Suds as Romney, even the Terran as Paul Ryan, who's mostly forgotten the time, thank goodness. But they're two really, really great impressions that we get here to open the season. So this really elevates it. There's high expectations going into this, right? Because 2008, we get all the Tina Fey, Sarah Palin stuff. So what are they going to do this political season? And I think they find a way to really do a good job with it.
And also, I mean, you mentioned Sudeikis before, who's back here somewhat reluctantly, because I believe at the time he only agreed to come back for the start of 38 to play Romney up until the election. And then he's going to end up staying for the rest of the season. But, there's sort of like that weird path there. And I think the show is looking to make new stars. So Taron Killam and Jay Farrow will end up being a pretty big part of this season, including Jay getting this role. So TJ, any memories for you of seeing Jay sort of start to take over a major part of Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, I wish I do remember the exact feeling I had, because this is very much like within my second or third year of watching the show, but not being able to watch it every week. So like, I know I caught this because I was like, oh my God, I'm absolutely going to watch Seth MacFarlane host. So like when Jay came on, I don't yet know if I knew who Jay was just yet, because this was so early in my viewing. But watching this cheering, I'm like, all this cheering, this has to be the first time that this motherfucker is doing this, because I'm like, why are they cheering so hard? But I was like really glad to see that. And then it also made me appreciate, I know people love Suds's Joe Biden, but because this was such a big time for me, like in my coming of age, I actually always liked him as Romney more. I thought he was a really fun Romney. He's great as Biden. Maybe I shouldn't say his Biden is better. Like, I have to give it to them. But I really liked his Romney. That's more because of the time that I came in. So I just think it was like funny because people were just cracking on Romney. And oh my God, Bill, wasn't it a blast from the past? Because it reminded me of that bit recently where there was the vice presidential candidate that they had live on SNL come out. So seeing a Paul Ryan reference, I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that guy. To forget about like the VP nominee of the guy who lost is such a funny little detail, having thought about that sketch recently. So yeah, again, this is a great start. And I think this is a continuing theme you'll see through the show. And one of the listeners called it out, and I really think it's great, which is this, and I think 5 other pieces in the show are what make it that this episode is not evergreen. It's absolutely an episode in 2012, and there is nothing you can do to take that away from it. And I think this is absolutely the start of that.
Well, it's funny though, because, oftentimes we say that premieres are not so great because they have to catch up on a lot of stuff from the summer. And then, but like for some reason, everything just sort of clicks here. I mean,
This is one of the
MacFarlane
best
comes in.
premieres they've ever had.
I totally
Of all
agree.
time.
I completely agree with you. I mean, MacFarlane comes out, he does a bunch of voices. So right away, as you said, TJ, like one of the best voice actors, and like really like a unique situation for Saturday Night Live. We get a commercial, Obama for America. So I'll just, sort of run through that part pretty quickly, because it's just a commercial about all the bad things Mitt Romney does, including, buying companies to lay off Keenan and stuff. And it's another political commercial there. I want to talk about Roger Brush though, because that is a character that I think is pretty polarizing. And I will defend this to my death, because I think that it is so funny. Fred is so funny as this. I know, like I've seen online, I've seen the chatter. I know a lot of people love this one, but the whole idea of like the innocence of the guests at the talk show, just asking about their like puberty problems or like marital problems. And he is just like the most vulgar, disgusting pig. Like there's something about seeing someone just like let it all out on TV, that just makes me laugh so hard. And Bill, I don't know if we ever talked about the sketch or like how you feel about it, but for me, I crack up hard every time I see it.
You're gonna have to speak up, John. You're gonna have to speak up. I
don't know what to tell you. Sorry.
I love this. This is such a guilty
good.
pleasure. I think this is great. Now, Cecily, thank goodness Cecily gets a moment later in the show, but her debut on SNL is a still photo of her in the Sex After 50. Like, oh, who's that girl? What's she gonna do on the show? But yeah, no, this is great. All the advice. Sticking your ding dong through the hammock, call your wife over and say, "Hey, there's something under the hammock."
It's great. It's so good.
So great. Yeah.
The best is like I just love the characterization of the people at the microphone. First of all, Bill Hader is so funny in this too.
Good.
Yes. So good as
he's
like
saying he can't get his penis hard enough, no matter how hard he tries. Like it's just,
but also the voice he's doing, which is like so unnecessary, but like completely adds to it. And the whole thing where like she's like my breasts are sagging. Speak up. My breasts are sagging. Oh, you should introduce them to my balls. Like it's so crazy. Like we don't talk about this one enough. TJ.
Yes, I've been having some trouble performing. Like it's so many great. Oh my god, when he there's a moment where he's like well, like this is my boyfriend, and he's like, oh my. Sorry, I can't remember what it is, but he roasts Tim Robinson.
No wonder you can't get it up. She looks rough.
It's so funny. It's really funny. Yeah. Well, I don't need to say anymore.
It was really good. It's one of those things, like, again, like I know that like some people were more tired on Fred near the end of his career, but oh my gosh, this one is so funny. I laugh at it every single, and I love the whole like that like I know if you had seen it every time, like you would recognize the pattern of like the theme song, and that like, okay, well, the actual host of the show is not available, so here comes Roger Brush. But I do love that this whole thing is packaged in the fact that he's not like actually the host of the show, because I think if it was the Roger Brush show, I don't think this plays as well. It totally plays in the fact that they're like, this isn't one like the regular host would say, and I think like that works for me much better. All right, let's talk about Eastwood and Cher. This is a pre-tape that we get where Bill Hader is playing Clint Eastwood, who's performing a play with this chair. I think I've heard a ton of references to this over the year, but again, a great impression here of Bill Hader in his final season as a cast member. Bill, you got anything on this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's of its time. I can remember watching the RNC live and just being mortified that this former iconic actor was just staring at a chair, screaming at Obama. And I'm glad that this was only a few weeks after that happened. So they really hit on it here, and Hader's just great. I love the line. I really love the 45 minutes in the middle when it's just the chair and Clint's in the back eating a chalupa or whatever it was.
He's eating a full rotisserie chicken.
That's right. That's even better. Yeah.
A full rotisserie chicken is what he's eating. Again, this is another touch point of this being 2012, because I remember, again, as a young new voter, hearing about this story about like, wait, what? And I remember it being in the news about the chair. So to see this, it did crack me up. Also, we're not going to like dive into it, but I do want to say Obama for America, another case of it being 2012. And that actually for me is another reason this episode is so high. Because I think there's a great bit in there. It's just a great escalation that I think just goes really well. Buying the shoe shine stand and just to lay it off. I mean, what a great escalation in that sketch. I know we didn't touch on it, but just don't hit that. But Eastwood and Cher, like this is already, we're having a great run. These first 5 pieces, like we're having a great time.
It's really, really good. We're going to go to a sketch that takes place in Lids. So we go to a real store where we see the employees who are looking to spice things up a little bit. So they have a button on the desk, and basically like, it's just an excuse to have Bobby Moynihan first perform Gangnam Style as Psy. And then we're going to get some like fun appearances from Taron Killam and Bill Hader performing along with them. And eventually the real Psy will come out. And this was like Gangnam Style mania at the time.
Yeah.
So they had to catch up on this. And I remember emceeing parties at the time, and like literally everyone was just waiting for us to play Gangnam Style. It was the biggest song in the world. So they had to have this done. I think it was like this, and then like, What Does the Fox Say? So like, it was
oh
like
God.
era.
Yeah, that was right after Jesus, these songs.
Yeah. So yeah, just a crazy time. But like, you have to get Psy on the premiere of season 38 to make this a full-time capsule moment, TJ.
again, another 2020. Like Psy is what cements this in 2012. It's like, oh damn, like you can maybe like edit out the Obama piece, or you can maybe have it be a little bit like maybe it's a year prior. But Psy, it's so fun how it puts it there. And let's be honest, this is the worst sketch of the night. Like, absolutely, because it's not a sketch, it's just an excuse for the cameo. But I will say, since I hadn't heard that damn song in probably 10 years, it was welcomed, because it wasn't like, you guys remember how much of an earworm that song was, and it was good. Like, it was a fun song that wore out its welcome. So this was Heather, watching this with Heather and forgetting that this was in here, because I usually always watch let's just say I forgot that this sketch was in here, because when I watched it on Peacock years ago, or like when I would like watch it like re-airing, this was taken out because of the music licensing. So this sketch is actually very lost to time. It's very hard to find. So seeing this shit again, I completely forgot it existed. So I think it was more fun than anything. But why did it need to happen in a lids store? Did Seth just find it funny to want to make fun of people working at lids? I can see him chuckling about wanting to like make fun of like those people, because I don't like, by the way, as somebody who has like 10 baseball hats or like snapbacks, I have a lot of hats. I love a hat. Bill's wearing a hat right now. But like, I'm never ever going to shop at a fucking lids. It's not my type of store. So I'm just like, why was that the detail? But like, it doesn't ruin the yum. The fun of it at that moment, I think, still keeps the energy. But if you look too hard, it's pretty fucking stupid.
There were like, I've DJed parties in the last few years where kids still ask for the song. So it is
really,
yeah, it has happened. So I'm always like, where did you find this? Like, I'm like, sometimes like things become old and then they become vintage, so then people like start to like them again. So I think that's like one of those things that happened with this song in a way.
Vintage. Oh my god.
Yeah,
it's
really,
it's not vintage. It was 2000. Oh my god, that's so
I know
funny.
it's fun. I mean,
you're gonna say Party Rock Anthem was vintage too?
I think people like that now. Like they've circled back on it. So I think that's one of those.
It is a great song.
Yeah, one of the things that happens. But I also remember, Bill, that like with this sketch, there was a lot of scuttlebutt online because, again, everyone who was like watching really closely knew that Jason Sudeikis probably like did not want to come back, and he kind of plays like a depressed coworker in this. And I think like just like everyone was like, oh, that's Jason not really like wanting to be there. Like obviously like that meant absolutely nothing, but I do remember that as like if we were covering it at the time and doing the podcast, we would have been talking like all about like what's happening with Sudeikis.
Yes, I remember that. Yes, absolutely. How about the thunderous applause that Psy gets? Like, I would like to talk to any of the 300 people that were in the audience that night and go, really? That's when you decided to like stand up in your chair and like, sure, okay, it is of the moment. I mean, we talked about Harlem Shake just a couple weeks ago, and here's the other one.
Oh man,
that just kind of overtook everybody. And like, boy, Psy is just sitting somewhere. I mean, getting those residuals, like enjoying the moment. So,
like he hates the song. Actually,
I could imagine. I mean,
yeah, now he hates it.
Yeah.
Heather and I went on
listen
like
to my new album. No, Psy. Yeah, play the hit. Play the.
Apparently,
hit.
this song has like 6.5 billion views on YouTube. Goodness. Like this music video. Oh my god, yeah. Apparently he hates the song, but they made like a statue of it. Like what an interesting phenomenon this song was. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's really crazy. No doubt we have to talk of probably the most iconic sketch from this episode, which would be the puppetry class sketch. Absolutely. Where you see Bill Hader as Anthony Peter Coleman, who's attending this puppet class and is just unbelievable in this one. It is like a absolute 10 out of 10 sketch where you watch it and you see his performance as he's supposed to be like learning how to do puppets, but he is this veteran who has a lot of PTSD and is taking it out through the puppet. And there's like flirtation going on and all this trauma as he tries to assimilate with the rest of the group. An all-time classic sketch here, Bill.
Is it okay if it's in a three-way, John? Because I feel like, let's start at the end and work backwards. Yeah, this is great. Hader just shows he's still got it. The cigarette and the smoke coming out of the puppet's mouth still sticks with me to this day.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, Vanessa's great. Keenan's great. Wanting to keep changing the voice. Like, I don't like that voice. Can I try something else? Seth being just this amicable host of this puppetry class and is okay with everything, and dropping some new voices on us too. Everything about this is great. I love this sketch.
Yeah, there was almost like some Stefan in there in the like, what's the name of the club going to be and how is Bill going to change his voice when he goes like, I'm Clark and I like biscuits and waffles. And like, that was just, it was something so quotable and so great. TJ, your thoughts?
And I love the retort after that. It was like, oh, like Seth is like, oh yeah, can you tell us like some more about Clark? And he's like, he was one of the grunts in my platoon. And he just goes right back to the character. Oh my God, there's so many great pieces in this sketch. There's a moment where he's talking about Little Tater, and he's like, Little Tater was my friend one night. We were out late, and I had to choke. Like, he chokes out the puppet. Like, there's so much great stuff in here. Like oh my God, when he starts flirting with Vanessa, and she's like, wow, you're like intense. Oh yeah, is that what you like? Daddy's girl. And he starts making out, the puppets are making out, and then it's when Bill starts feeling up the puppet, not the puppet feeling up the puppet, Bill's full human hand starts feeling up the puppet hand like he's grabbing some titty. Jesus Christ, what am I talking about? And then starts kissing it. I'm like, what a fun, like, oh God, this, and there's one other sketch in here that I think that for me are like the ones I love taking people back to. I've shown so many people puppet class. Oh my gosh. I've shown friends. I've shown like shown family. I remember, oh, this is such a funny thing. I remember that like when I was younger, and I like not younger. I remember when I was like single and I was like casually out there. This would be a sketch I would show people sometimes, like after we had like a night of like fun. Like I'd be like, oh, let's like watch some funny sketches. And this was always in that rotation. And so, oh yeah, I don't know, just great sketch. Oh, Jesus.
This is on anyone's playlist who wants to show, oh, you've never watched SNL, or oh, you haven't watched SNL since 1985. You gotta see this.
You have to see this sketch.
Hader is just so great in this. And it all being set in Grenada, which is, I mean, you know, they could have made it Vietnam, which is the clear PTSD, like, you know, starting point. They could have made it a little bit later with the first Iraq war. No, they go to this 1983 skirmish that, you know.
Oh, so this was real?
Yeah, Reagan got us into Grenada. Oh, that's a whole thing. But yeah,
I didn't even know that.
I don't think anyone died in that, especially from U.S. forces. But like, yeah, to choose that as the skirmish that his buddy had to be choked out because he didn't know to shut up. Like, yeah, that's such a great little point.
It's unbelievable.
Give away our position.
And it's also crazy that he like only does it twice. I think like he does it here and he does it when he hosts again. But you know, it comes late into his career, but again, cements about like how strong of a season 38 he's going to have. That's going to elevate his status as an all-time great cast member. So great stuff here. TJ, you mentioned Frank Ocean. Also, I'm a big fan. I really liked getting to see him here. This felt like really good music. I mean, it's definitely like a little bit lower key than some of the premier musical guests we would typically get, but like I thought he sounded fantastic and it was so good.
Frank Ocean is the type of artist that like, if you're not an R&B listener, he gets you into R&B music. And I'm not an R&B fan. He, to me, is like somebody, it's like, whoa, people are doing those, like people are doing that. He like gets you into the genre. At this time, it was funny because I was talking to Heather that, oh yeah, we're going to watch an episode of Frank Ocean's going to be in it. And I was like, oh yeah, Frank Ocean. Like I was trying to explain to her like who Frank Ocean was. And first of all, and by the way, listeners, yes, I was offended that my girlfriend did not know who Frank Ocean was. I handled that after the offense. And then, you know, talked to her about like, oh yeah, like this. And I was like, oh, like probably one of his bigger songs was Think About You. That was a really big commercial song for him. And I remember like that for me is the song I think about the most. I hadn't listened to him in a long time because that nigga hasn't dropped in 9 years, but I know that's for the Frank Ocean fans that are suffering out there. That's for y'all. I know it's rough. I'm sorry. But I was like, Think About You. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know where I heard Think About You. So it was so funny coming to watch it. I was like, oh wait, I didn't learn about Frank Ocean before SNL. SNL taught me about Frank Ocean. So seeing Think About You was like, oh, that's where I heard this track. So Also just fun to see black nerds represented. You know, he had the arcade machines in that performance. Love just a fun little fact. I know it's listed here in the cameo that John Mayer is on guitar for both of his songs. And I think he's on a John Mayer album around this time. So this makes everyone think of a more fonder time because, again, another imprint of it being 2012, because this was a time when Frank Ocean released some fucking music. So just really just another snapshot of this being such a time capsule episode. But my God, what a performer. What an artist.
Great stuff.
And I'll say that about the Pyramid song too. But yeah, that's all I have. Just and the guitar solo at the end of Pyramids with John Mayer. Oh, great guitar solo. So yeah,
great stuff
wonderful.
Here from John Mayer alongside Frank Ocean. I mean, just it was really, really good. Weekend update. I'll say I think we could brush over the Mama June and Honey Boo Boo.
No, we could not.
All right. What is it?
All I want to say is, again, actually, I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not going to say 2012 because obviously Honey Boo Boo is a 2012 thing. But I just want to say one. Honey Boo Boo's still in the air. The Mom has a show that's been 7 seasons. Doesn't that blow everybody away? But I think this is just another speaking to how consistent they kept the episode. And to have, are we skipping over Ryan Lochte or are we going to Ryan Lochte?
No, I want to talk about that for a second because I think
again, yeah, I think it's fun. Like, yeah, I think this doesn't do anything bad. It's about something that's annoying, but it's making fun of it. So I don't think this hurts the episode at all. I don't even think it's weak. I think it's good. I think it's consistent because Honey Boo Boo was everywhere and it was really annoying.
Definitely. And I think, Ryan Lochte being played by Seth MacFarlane here coming off the 2012 Summer Olympics, this was really funny. I mean, to get a host in his first time hosting, also doing Weekend Update, like he's really all over the show. And again, when you look for the qualities of like what is the potential of one of the greats that could go on, like it is really surprising when you get to see just how like dumb he's playing Lochte. I mean, I've seen Ryan Lochte on like reality shows since then. So like, I know that he's like pretty on point with the way he's playing him, but like beyond that, like just the way he's doing this, like Bill, I watch this and I'm like, how have they never brought Seth MacFarlane back to host?
Yeah, it's crazy. And we get 3 impressions in a row here of the 3 of the biggest dummies on the planet. And Honey Boo Boo and Mama and Ryan Lochte. I mean, Ryan Lochte, that whole summer, it was just every time they interviewed him in the Olympics, it was like talking to a box of rocks. So, I mean, Seth really, really nails this here. And I mean, he just shows his versatility. We don't get the host on update, especially first time host, very much. So this is a great performance by Seth.
It's really good. And then we get Cecily Strong's real debut on the show as she's playing Mimi Morales. A lot of people think she comes on first with the like the girl you wish you hadn't started a conversation with at the party, but I think that first premieres in a Weekend Update Thursday. We do get, in this case, Mimi Morales, who's a Latina voter who's thinking about who to vote for and brings along her boyfriend, Joel, I think it is, played by Jay Farrow. And we get to meet Cecily Strong, who will go on to become like a pretty legendary cast member. So, TJ, how did it feel to see Cecily in her infancy?
Oh my God, I just have to say, this is my little fun anecdote because I remember being very charmed by this. I remember thinking it was very funny, and I love the end the end joke that she can't vote because she's 17. I think it's a great time where it's like, oh, that wasn't a button. That's just a phenomenal fucking ending, and you nailed that landing. But just my funny little aside about this is 2 things. One, for years after this update piece aired, I would always sometimes when I would say stop, I would always be like, stop, like, because I would do an impression of that because I thought it was very funny the way that she says it. Stop it. Like, I know what she's doing an impression of is very funny. But when I had the true takeaway from this that stayed with me way longer than it should have, probably until maybe before I even started doing the show a little bit, is that because this is Cecily Strong's first speaking piece on the show, and because she is wearing like a bronzer on it, she looks like her skin is darkened here. I thought this bitch was actually Latino for fucking years. I'm being so dead ass right now, listeners. I was 18 and I was watching this, on a Comcast cable, like I was just watching it while it was airing. I didn't have, like Hulu and everything yet. So I was like, oh, cool. They brought a Latino cast member on. I don't remember when it did click in that she's just a white lady. I think she did Janine Pinero. And I was like, there's no fucking way this bitch is Latino. So I at least 6 years, I thought Cecily Strong was a Latina woman. to me, it makes me laugh that I was that dumb. But it's because you're watching TV in a time where you can't rewind. Well, you could rewind, but I didn't have the rewind feature. We were poor at the time. So it just cracks me up that like I thought she was Latina for so long because of this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. But anyways, like
it just me.
No, I don't think you're alone on that. I think
that actually makes me feel really good. I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, we're going to see a lot of stuff from Cecily over the years, and it's great to get to meet her for the first time in this episode and see what she could potentially do on the show. The back half of this episode is very live sketch heavy. So 4 live sketches and 1 musical performance. And I think that maybe contributes perhaps to how strong this episode is considered, because they just had a lot of really good ideas here. So the first one is a drill sergeant sketch where, traditionally the sergeant will say like, was I stuttering or do I stutter? And in this case, the drill sergeant actually does stutter at times, which creates confusion for all of the people that are working under him. So a lot of back and forth here, a lot of really fast lines from Seth MacFarlane and the other male cast members in this sketch. CJ, you seem excited to talk about this one.
Yes, because this, I think for me, like Puppet Class obviously is in a tier of its own. I do think Drill Sergeant is like one notch below Puppetry Class. This was also something I would show people that I would hang out with. Drill Sergeant, because I would start fangirling about Seth MacFarlane, and I would be like, oh, we should watch this episode. And I would show it to people. And Drill Sergeant, I'm actually bothered because for some reason in my head, I always thought Drill Sergeant came at the top. And I always thought I thought it came right after the monologue. I don't know why. Like for years, I was like, oh, this comes right after the monologue, and then you get the pre-tape. But I was wrong, and I forgot it comes so late in the show. It really, to me, feels like a great like pre-weekend update sketch. I think it's that strong. I think it's like that simple. Like the bit is, but I do love the sketch. I think the stuttering is great. Keenan and Tim Robinson and Fred are just delightfully like okay, like, but how do we like act, like they're trying to really like give this guy grace. And I think Seth MacFarlane is in phenomenal form here. I think it's, he's using that deep voice of his well. And also want to call out something that I know we touched on a teeny bit, which is it's at this point in this episode, and I think a couple of sketches after this also does, but this episode, normally when you see a host come on, they might try to elevate their talent. Think about it in Ariana Grande or Bruno Mars. This person can sing, let's elevate that. Megan Thee Stallion, her talent is talk about ass. Let's make every sketch about ass that we can. And this was a case, I don't know if we've had this, which is like Seth MacFarlane, while yes, he can sing, his talent is his voice. There are so many sketches in this episode that are based around his capability as a master of his voice. And I think it's such an individual phenomenon in this episode that is another thing that is so unique to it, because we haven't seen that since, and I don't know if we've seen that beforehand, where like the voice is the star versus the singer is the star. Ariana is probably the closest comparison that I had to that, but I think this sketch is another case that adds to like how unique this episode really is. Look at me sounding all like a critic and stuff.
No, I love it. And I think that's, so fascinating in a visual medium where how do you incorporate that into sketch form? And I think they do that really well here, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to beat the Phil's version of a drill sergeant, but this is a completely different thing once you get past the first couple of, maybe beats that we see. But everybody is really good in this. Keenan has a great line about, did I stutter? A little bit that time, sir. Fred throwing his arms up, like, yeah, of course he's stuttering. Like, and then he tries to sing it because that's something that stutterers do try to do, like to kind of get the rhythm back to being able to talk. Have you learned to dress yourself? Dress yourself.
Have you ever learned how to dress yourself? Dress yourself.
Yes.
Yes, I do, and I apologize. Like, Bobby's retort.
Bobby's so good at this.
Yes,
Seth, good at it.
Seth is just so fantastic. At this point in the night, we know what a great host he's been. So it's stunning that we haven't gotten him back yet.
We're going to get a Steve Harvey talk show parody, which, believe it or not, was a show that existed in 2012. It is,
don't disrespect Steve Harvey like that.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that we're so used to Keenan playing him as a Family Feud host that we don't get, this is less memorable, but basically it's a sketch where
if you're not black.
Okay, less memorable in SNL world. That's what I'm saying. Not in the real world.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, and I am not black, but the the concept here is
That's your
that
truth. Is that your truth, John?
I guess. And then yeah, so then basically there's going to be a transformation done for Seth MacFarlane's character. Is going to come out dressed exactly like Steve Harvey, looking like him and talking like him. So a little bit of fun there. I think we got to talk about the first date sketch though a little bit more, which is probably one of Nasim Pedrad's best sketches in her career, where she's going to go opposite of MacFarlane, basically do exactly what you're talking about, TJ, where she's going to go head to head with him in terms of voice work, and everything is like this or like that, and then as they keep going off on different tangents, and eventually we're going to see a bunch of other cast members come in, including 80's first appearance on the show, and just an absolutely hilarious moment of Bill Hader walking out as Gale, where they start to make fun of him, and we get the great line of like, hell nah, now you're making fun of Gale from Keenan. Classic stuff here.
He's like shaking the water on him and like throwing it all over him.
Oh, so good. So good. But you referenced it and you said like the voice work here is absolutely fantastic. So I think this is one that's really memorable. So good stuff here from Nasim Pedrad. Bill, anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, and Nassim's adorable here, and the escalation that we get from the different people coming in. We get Tim Robinson, who's been a little bit all over this episode, which is really nice to see, even though his career doesn't go on SNL to be what he does afterwards. But yeah, 80's line when she comes out, 80 being 80 immediately, like, I want to become you, is such a great line, and ending it with Seth doing Quagmire's voice and Nasim going, don't do that, we're 30.
I bet Seth loved that joke because he just left the show at that time, and
Right.
I'm willing to bet he just loved that joke. Like, oh my god, it's like, yeah, we'll put that in there.
It's good stuff. And then the final sketch of the night after the second Frank Ocean performance is a sketch called Wooden Spoon Warehouse, which is a Tim Robinson piece that is pretty shortened as they try and get it to the end of the night. I believe that they did upload a dress rehearsal version either on NBC.com or on YouTube at some point, but like there's a longer version of the sketch that exists out there. But in the live version, it's about like a minute-ish, and it's
quick.
It's so quick, and it's this like woodenspoonwarehouse.com, and the way like the Seth and Tim are across from each other, like it is so written in Tim Robinson's voice, and many of you have come to get to like know him much better since that he was on the show. But at the time, this night, when we saw this sketch at the end, them talking about all of the letters and the spoons and selling them, everyone was so excited because they were like, we finally got like another really weird guy on the show that is able to maybe like do some Forte-esque things. And this is the comedy that we're going to expect for years to come. Obviously, as Bill said, it doesn't pan out that way. But Bill, this was so exciting to see Tim Robinson in the premiere get this huge sketch on at the end of the night.
Yeah, it was very exciting. And if we were doing a hot take show that night, this would certainly be the three new cast members. This would be the one we were talking about. Obviously, Cecily had her moment on Update, and as we said with 80. But yeah, Tim, as I said, all over this episode, and to kind of put a period, an exclamation point at the end of the episode with this short and sweet commercial about these Amish guys who are describing how to do a website is just phenomenal.
It was great stuff here. And TJ, any of your thoughts on the final sketch of the night, the Wooden Spoon Warehouse?
I mean, it's like it's so quick that it doesn't offend you, just like the jogger from 1989. But I just will add the way Seth looks away from the camera when he says, "The river what took my son," and he just looks away, and it's a quick pause. And for them to do that also in something that's so short, I just think it's beautiful. It's quick. It gets the job done, because that's the big laugh of that sketch. Otherwise, it's like, what's happening? But you're out so fast. You're like, all right, sure, whatever, bye. Like it's fine. So yeah, I do like that. The river what took my son. I really like that.
Yeah, and it's just like it's all of like the really subtle Amish jokes, and it just plays different than other things we had seen in previous years that I think really work here. So let's do some overall thoughts on this episode. Obviously, a fantastic premiere, made everyone very excited about season 38, which will go on to be a pretty good season of the show. So I got to ask you guys, 36 all time, does that make sense? Is it too high, too low, or just right? TJ, let me start with you on this one.
I feel like I would need to see the rest of the list before I would say it's too low, but I'm so glad that this got honored, and I'm so glad I revisited it in its full piece rather than like what I've seen like in the edited version since then. Watching this top to bottom, oh my god, it's so much stronger when you remember these other little pieces about it. And just what a great job top to bottom. Like phenomenal episode. Obviously I have a huge bias here, but I don't give a fuck. I fucking love this episode.
All right, Bill, let's get your final thoughts. You've been dissecting this list, so are you happy this one made it and in the spot that it did?
I'm happy where this is. It'll be interesting. We keep saying that about all these episodes, where it finally ends up, which is why we're doing our own list, John. But this is a very interesting season, a very good season. SNL doesn't always figure it out when they have two different eras kind of merging together, and we're about to come into this huge era of this triumvirate of women and Kate and Cecily and Aidy, and the end of Hader and Fred. And I think it does a very good job. This is probably one of the better episodes of season 38, and we're off and running for sure.
Yeah, it's a very exciting one to talk about. All right, so that does it for season 38, episode 1, our conversation about Seth MacFarlane and Frank Ocean here at number 36 on the list. Let's move on to the final episode that we're going to talk about here tonight. We are at number 35 on the list, and I am very interested in the conversation we're going to have about this one. So we're going to head back in time to an episode that was extremely polarizing at the time. It contained an absolutely iconic moment that is talked about whenever you hear the word SNL. You think of potentially this moment as well. So let's go back to season 29, episode 18, hosted by Lindsay Lohan with musical guest Usher from May of 2004. Lindsay Lohan's first time hosting the show. And this is the episode that had the very famous Debbie Downer sketch. When we talked earlier about Beavis and Butthead, we said that there's, Debbie Downer comparisons. And Bill, it made it here on the list. Is it only because of Debbie Downer, or are there other things to talk about here? We're going to discuss that here at 35.
Yes, it is, John. Good night. This is insane. Said it so many times about the iconic sketch being part of what we're talking about here. We're not doing the 50 greatest sketches of all time. We're doing the 50 greatest episodes. And if you love Debbie Downer, that's fine. But when you start to look at the rest of this episode, boy, does it not hold up. So I feel like this is one that just kind of oh yeah, Debbie Downer, that happened back in 2004, put it on the list. And going back and watching this was a little rough.
Okay. TJ, how did it feel to go back and watch this one? Let's get some overall thoughts.
I don't know. I don't remember if I'd watched this episode all the way through before. I've definitely seen lots of pieces from it, like Turlington's, Debbie Downer, Hogwarts. Like I've seen lots of pieces, but I don't know if I ever sat down and watched like the entire thing. But I will say I was glad to just kind of see this little snapshot, because I think this is the day after Mean Girls released in theaters. So I think that's why they had Lindsay Lohan hosting. And I'm pretty sure I remember that because, one, it's funny enough, they don't talk about Mean Girls in the monologue, but two, I was an 11-year-old boy at the time, and I had the biggest crush on Lindsay Lohan because of that movie and her hosting. So seeing kind of like somebody I had a crush on when I was a kid, it's like very fun to kind of like go back to that time, which was like prime Lohan time. Oh God, don't you guys miss prime Lindsay Lohan time? What a good time. But as for this episode, like, yeah, I do agree with Bill that like Debbie Downer's strong, and there's a few other pieces that we could talk about here. But like this, I would say of everything, I think this is probably the weakest episode in this list. And so for it to rank so high, I'm so baffled by it. But Lindsay herself as a host, I think she did do a great job. So I think this will be an interesting from the polarizing conversation. I like what Bill said, about like the greatest sketch doesn't mean that it's one of the greatest episodes. I think that's a very fair critique. But what I will say is, I think Usher does a fucking great job at what he had to do for this episode, because this is is in this episode. So can't be mad at that song. Who can frown when you're listening to Yeah? Like it's Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'll also say this. So Lindsay Lohan was voted as the 23rd greatest SNL host of all time last summer when we did this.
Is that without Debbie Downer bias?
Well, it was just general like host I moved her down like out of the top 50 there. I moved her down to 36. So I thought she was like way too high on the list.
I think that's fair.
Bill had her at 34. So we both like felt like she was way too high. I also agree. Like, I think as an SNL host, I mean, obviously Lindsay's had her issues, like some on the show, mostly off the show, but but personally, like, I think she's a really good host. I think that she should come back and host again for the 5th time. I think it would be really, really
Yes.
fun. So it's like one of those things that's like,
Please.
I think they should make that happen. I will say, when she hosted this episode for the first time, so I was 11 years old when this happened, and I was not really as tapped into SNL. Like, I knew it existed, I had seen a couple things, but when this happened, like, I was still in elementary school, and I could tell you, like, this was a cultural phenomenon episode. Like, not only because of Debbie Downer and that becoming a big sketch, but Lindsay Lohan was like the biggest thing in the world. Like, people were talking about her hosting SNL, and I just remember hearing, I wasn't exactly sure like what the show is on a week-to-week basis, but I remember hearing about this episode. In reality, watching it through, knowing what I know now about Saturday Night Live, like, I don't believe that this episode is deserving of its place on the list. I certainly don't think I don't know if it's a top 50. It's definitely not a top 50 episode. I don't think it's a top 100 episode, but I think that the moment of Debbie Downer, for me, I will defend the original Debbie Downer, because I think that's where we got to start here. I think the original Debbie Downer is so funny to me. It hits all of the things I'm looking for in the like breaking rules of like, breaking isn't funny, but trying not to break is funny. And I think they had like something really good here with the sound effects and the characters. Like, it's so hard to talk about it after seeing it a million times and seeing all the other variations of it. But like, seeing Jimmy and Horatio, who I, obviously crack up with a million other things, but in this case are like wiping their eyes with pancakes as they cannot keep it together, is so funny to me. And I never lose that spark of enjoying this one. So I think we have to start there with the original Debbie Downer sketch. Bill, how did it feel to revisit it?
This was fun to rewatch. Leaving, you almost have to have the Men in Black light to kind of block your mind from the rest of the Debbie Downers, because I think this was the fear with Beavis and Butthead. Are they going to do this 20 more times? Because, I mean, talk about diminishing returns. Debbie Downer fell off a cliff to the point where some of them were just almost unwatchable. But this first one is really, really good. Leave aside the fact that, as you said, Fallon and Horatio can't stop laughing in anything, but this is a really good reason. And one of the most famous lines, I think, as Rachel's trying to keep it together and said, it's official, and Jimmy just gives her that look. I can't have children. And then the camera just pans into her and she's still burst out laughing and trying to do the half frown. I mean, what a moment. So yes, this everything about this is still very, very funny. Breaking is funny when it's not on purpose. And I think this is one of those scenarios.
And there's just something about, like, I think what people don't talk about with Debbie Downer enough is just like, there is something that happens like in the eyes of Rachel Dratch where you can see like her eyes like shaking as she's just trying to like, she like wants to be good, like she wants to keep it together, but she can't. And I think like the whole like this taking place at Disney World, and that she's like ruining the like what's supposed to be the like, you're taking the happiest place on earth and you're putting the biggest downer in that happy place, and like that opposite of each other really, really works well in a sketch writing. I think when you put like Debbie Downer at Thanksgiving, like it doesn't play the same way. I think there's something about everything that's happening with the whole like was it like Goofy coming out and like her depressing him as well. Like it's like one of those things that just like everything here hits on all the levels. And this was a sketch that like it may be the most talked about SNL sketch of all time. So TJ, how did it feel to revisit it for you?
I mean, yeah, it was fun revisiting it within the context of this, like of the full episode itself. So like, I really am glad to like have watched that, because I think there's just like so much more laughs. And man, this sketch, obviously this sketch is obviously in what, like the top 10. Like this is like one of the best like sketches of all time. Like clearly, up there with like Matt Foley. So just really fun to revisit. And I mean, I don't know, like, what can you say about Debbie Downer that people haven't, except that when I was a kid and I started hearing this expression, that I didn't know that it was from a show. I thought it was an expression that was just a thing. So the fact that it was so big that it made itself, a piece of our cultural lexicon, it became a literal piece of slang, I think just goes to speak to like the reach of it. And can we also say, is this perhaps the big, I don't know what instrument it is. For years, I thought it was a tuba or a trumpet, but I don't think it's either of those. Is it a horn? Maybe it's a horn. But the
We need James
instrument
or
that,
Mike to help us with that.
yeah, I want listeners, is there, can somebody can list for us what the instrument is that plays when Debbie Downer, like, the famous instrument sound? I thought it was a tuba, but I'm pretty sure that
Trombone.
it's not.
Robe says trumpet. Yeah,
Trombone. Thank you, listeners. So it's a trombone. Is this the biggest cultural moment for trombones?
I'd say so. I'm not a
Yeah.
trombone expert, but I would think
Is this
that
Apex Mountain?
Yeah,
Apex Mountain
I think
for trombones for my
for sure.
rewatchables fans.
So,
Rewatchables
okay, look,
listeners?
no doubt, TJ, as you said, one of the most important sketches in the history of the show because it is something that just became so iconic. This takes place in what is really like a down period for Saturday Night Live. Like I always look at 28, 29, and 30 as like the slow descent into hell. And this is like the episode needed, like the series needed some juice at this point, and all the talk was about Debbie Downer and probably made the perception of SNL a lot better than it was at this point. And it's just like, it's one of those things like every now and then Saturday Night Live can create some magic, and they had that here. I totally get why and again, we had a lot of people vote in this poll. Like I get why if you are a fan of SNL and you love this sketch and you love this moment, why you feel like this is one of the greatest episodes for you, because you're like, this episode has this sketch. It's just that I feel like the base level of like everything else that takes place in the episode has to be like a little bit higher for me to be like justify having that one sketch in the show. I think in all the episodes we talked about previously, when there is that one iconic moment, at least there's other things that we could say here are hidden gems, or here are things that maybe people don't talk about enough. I don't know if they have that here. So let's go through the rundown, and we could probably breeze through this one fairly quickly as we talk through some of the things that we see here. So there is a cold open here with Will Forte as Bush. And, Bill, you mentioned earlier that we're in the post Farrell as Bush era. This is, they tried it with Parnell. They tried it with Daryl Hammond. I think Forte plays Bush like once previous to this, but like it was in a weird, like sort of futurist or past Bush or whatever. This is modern time George W. Bush being played by Will Forte, who's preparing for the 9/11 hearings and is reading things off his hand and legs and is being coached by Daryl Hammond's Dick Cheney. How did it feel to revisit it?
I'm George W. Bush, and I approve this muffin. Forte has talked a lot, especially recently, I guess, with all the 50th coverage, about how embarrassed he is of his Bush. I think he's a pretty good Bush. I mean, he's never going to be Will Ferrell in this regard. He had a different take on it. Parnsey and Daryl, as you said, they couldn't really find a good hook. And, he's put in a terrible position of having to take this over. I mean, we're 2 years removed from Will Ferrell being on the show. And they still can't figure it out. But I think he has an interesting take on this. And this is an important moment with in the 9/11 hearings are amping up. I think they did it the week before too with Daryl and Condoleezza Rice. So it's an important cultural moment, political moment in the history of the country. And I think it's a pretty good take.
TJ, what did you think of Will Forte's George Bush impression?
Pass.
Okay. Didn't work for you. That's fine. But it does work for me better than a lot of the other ones. It's just not Will Ferrell's Bush is just too good. Like, it's hard to live in the shadow. So I get that. The monologue here is so emblematic of this era of the show where it is pure pop culture. They're just going to in Tina's SNL. It's all about what's in the head. Like you could rip basically this monologue out of People magazine to see what's being talked about here.
God,
and
yeah.
I'm a big fan of pop culture. I like certain things of that. It didn't bother me as much as the average person. And I think if you're really not looking for that from SNL, this is why the era doesn't really work for you. I just remember the Hillary Duff versus Lindsay Lohan stuff. I remember it being we could talk about it at school. With Avril Lavigne was obviously a big deal. Me as a Canadian, to see Amy as Avril Lavigne. I often argue, and I did on our cast countdown a couple years ago, that Amy Poehler is a top 10 cast member of all time. And part of that is that she is the best thing during some really bad years of the show. And she does that a couple times in this episode where you can watch an episode like this and you're like, wow, thank God Amy's on this cast. She's good here. We also see Maya as her Whitney Houston impression, which we're going to see a lot as well.
Yeah, just you're touching on your Amy. Because of the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast, I'd started watching some of the episodes kind of in the sequence that they were covering them on the podcast, and seeing Amy in all these episodes, I'm obviously, Parks and Recreation is my second favorite TV show of all time. I love Amy Poehler because of Leslie Knope. I love Amy Poehler dearly because of that role. But to see her now in a different era than I've grown to already have this like strong enjoyment of someone as a performer, to see that, oh my God, what a lightning bolt. Like she is it also when she was pregnant, God damn, like this woman is everywhere during these mid 2000s episodes. Oh my God. Like it felt like in not just utility, it felt like she was doing everything, but she wasn't the star, but she was the face you would see, like a Phil Hartman-esque, where it's like maybe not Phil, but like in the sense where it's like this person is everywhere, like they are all over the show. Like, oh my God, like I don't know if we talk about it a ton. I know we all love Amy and we respect her, but just kind of going back, like thanks to that podcast, like you're right. By the way, also, John, don't play with our audience like that just because you're Canadian. Of fucking course, Americans love and know Avril Lavigne because I was right at the age to be listening to Avril Lavigne, not listening to her, but like to know very much who she was. And she's held in very good regard globally. Isn't she like a major artist in Japan too? Like, but this was very funny to see.
She recently had a song with Simple Plan that I really like. So that was like a really fun Canadian moment for me. But yeah, Amy Poehler. I mean, I talked about this. Amy Poehler like was in 5.26 sketches per episode as a cast member of her career. Like it's unbelievable stuff. That's something you don't get like in modern times. Like the people I've had her on this list are, basically I'll take out Charlie Rocker for a second, but Phil Hartman, Joe Piscopo, Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and Amy Poehler. It's crazy how much she was all over the show. And I argued that I think I put her at 9 all time. Like, I think to me, she is so much more deserving of praise than she actually gets because there are some bigger maybe stars that came out of the show. Like, I don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, she doesn't get the praise that she deserves. Really fun stuff from her here. We're going to get a Turlington's lower back tattoo remover. Chris Parnell was also part of the monologue, and he does a description here about some funny jokes about this commercial to burn off your tattoos. So good Parnell straight man stuff. We're right near the end of Jimmy Fallon's SNL career. So he is going to do his final edition of Jarrett's Room, which was like his sort of high, him and Gobi. It's basically him and Horatio having some fun on webcam in their dorm room. We're going to meet Lindsay Lohan, Skylar, who's going to be taking over their room for the following year. And, they're going to get the robot that they use, voiced by Will Forte, high. So, Bill, I could tell you don't like Jarrett's Room at all. Was there anything here?
Hate Jarrett's Room. Hate it. It was an excuse for these two to just laugh and cut it up and not have any. I mean, there was nothing to these sketches after the first one. The only thing I will say about this particular version is Forte's weed smoking robot is fantastic. But yeah, the rest of it can just go to the side.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think this is very like American Pie coded of like, it's just that time where like, there was like this stoner mentality. Like I think the one that which is the one that I think it was with Sean William Scott, literally from American Pie, that I really, really enjoyed from this version of Jarrett's Room. TJ, did you want to say something about this?
Yeah, first of all, don't disrespect American Pie like that. Like you can talk about all those other like.
Oh, it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. So like, I think, by the way, so a quick question about this before, because this is my first Jarrett's Room I'd ever seen. Was this the only time the weed smoking robot shows up?
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
Okay, because I'll be honest, what they did by giving the robot eyebrows so that the robot is like somewhat out of frame, but you can see its eyebrows moving with like Will Forte's thing, I do think is the strongest piece of the sketch. I did think that was very funny. But otherwise, oh my God, I did not enjoy this. This sucked hard. I will give the caveat. I fucking hate stoner humor. Like it's not stuff that like it's that and like scatological. Like you'll never like get me with those. Like it's just doesn't land. Like it's just not for me in any way. And so like I just wasn't like vibing on that. And it also for me felt like something that I'm willing to bet maybe there's some other Jarrett's Rooms that are really good. I know people like Wayne's World. Wayne's World is okay, there's a couple good ones in there, but it's just okay. But obviously, I'm a fan of was it Nassim or I think it was a Nassim Pedrad character where Andy Samberg played her older brother,
Yeah.
and it was basic. It's the same format. They're playing a web show, and it's like but she's an annoying little sister. And I thought it was similar to that because it kind of reminded me of those, but I enjoyed those. Also, by the way, we never talk about Nassim Pedrad enough. Not going to talk about it, but for me, one, like somebody I really enjoy, really, really like Nassim a lot.
There
But
was
like,
also a Sashir Zamata character that used to like dance on webcam, like for YouTube, and like that was the thing. I think she did that with and stuff
yeah,
like that. Like that's the one I think about
yeah,
sometimes. But also say,
yeah, this format, yeah, just
yeah,
like I don't know, maybe want the Nassim character, but like I could skip right over this,
there
except
was
for that
some of
We
the
Smoke a Robot. That shit was funny. The eyebrows, that did crack me up.
there
Wait,
was some
what?
there was some of the Jarrett's rooms earlier on that had like Jeff Richards in them, like playing the like sort of like their other roommate, and he would always like they would go to him and he would always just be like posing shirtless, and I think like that was good. And then they started having Seth Meyers play DJ Jonathan Feinstein. So like there was always like these little bits. It felt like very of the moment. I think we got to talk about Hogwarts Academy a little bit. So I will say when I first saw this,
Because of the sorry, I was thinking about the video game. Sorry.
When I first saw the Hogwarts sketch, the Harry Potter sketch that we got in this episode. So essentially, I'll explain the premise if you hadn't seen it. So this is like a pretty infamous sketch where Lindsay Lohan is playing Hermione, who comes back from summer break and has gone through puberty, and the whole thing is like all of the Harry Potter characters are reacting to her boobs and like the jokes as like the professors walk in and like just like can barely speak, and then there's a magnifying glass and like the whole thing. When I was like a kid and I was watching the sketch, like I thought this was the funniest thing ever. Like obviously now when I'm older and like knowing that Lindsay Lohan is 17, like it doesn't play the same. So it's like one of those things that's like really tough to talk about. But I will say, like, in addition to Debbie Downer, this was the other most talked about sketch from this episode. Like this was the one that people were like, oh, Lindsay Lohan is willing to like do anything and like have fun as an SNL host, and like maybe she's the next great SNL host. So like I think that like probably a lot of the things that are wrong with this sketch take away a lot of the things that people originally liked about it, but this was certainly one that people were talking about and has become very polarizing since then. So Bill, your thoughts on revisiting it?
Yeah, I think I was off the week that Lindsay came up in the host countdown last year, so I didn't get to talk about this sketch. Yeah, this is troubling. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the concept of it, except that she's 17. Like, Seinfeld did this with Denise Richards, and she was supposed to be a teenager. She was 22. Like, and it was look into the cleavage and look away, quick look. This is just a lot of hamina, auga, eyes popping. And like, I don't know, watching this, especially having, daughters, like it's just, I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough.
It's also really tough with Horatio playing Hagrid. And
God, right?
Like, it's like a whole other layer to this sketch that like also ruins the sketch, is that like Horatio is one of the people who's doing this. So yeah, it is really tough. Cause like I said, it was, I would venture to say this sketch was like beloved at the time.
Yes. Sure. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew about this. Oh, sorry, John.
No, go ahead. No, please. I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, like early on in my like SNL like discovery, like this is an early sketch. I think I remember seeing on like network TV in those like not the best of, but in those like kind of rerun specials or something. But I know I'd seen this in like I learned about this early on culturally. And absolutely, I did love. I don't know if I'd love, but I know I like really thought the sketch was funny, and it is so funny how it's such a pivot because like when she says she's 17 in the monologue. At first, when I was watching this sketch, I was like, man, I wonder how Lindsay Lohan. I was just curious because Lindsay is almost 40 now, right? No, I guess she wouldn't be. She would be yeah, she is almost 40 now.
38.
Yeah,
38. She's almost she's only 38 now. Wow. I don't know.
Get some ideas, TJ?
No. Because I feel like in the new Mean Girls movie, she does look a little older. As in like she seems more mature, and I'm just surprised. I'm like, wow, she's very young. Okay, so in this episode, she says that she's 17, and I was like, man, this sketch is definitely a little weird. Why were they so willing to go there? Like, why were they so willing to do the Quagmire thing, like live on air?
As Chris Parnell said, she's only 63 days away from being 18.
By the way, that was a hilarious delivery, but such a creepy line.
Parnell
But I'm
can do
like,
her
why
better than anybody.
I'm like, why would they feel so comfortable doing this? Like, okay, 2004, maybe they aren't thinking about it as much. And then I remember I just Googled, I was like, yo, hey, has Lindsay Lohan talked about this moment since? And I'm like, why? Like, what does like she think about this now as like a 38-year-old woman? And I learned because of this that like the age of consent in the state of New York at the time, and I believe still now, is 17. So now, granted, that doesn't mean you could just hook up a 17-year-old. But I was like, oh shit, could that be part of the reason why they thought it was cool to like
They
rocking
didn't
with
think
this?
about
Like,
it was 2004, TJ. They didn't think about any
okay,
of this.
all right.
They just thought she's like one of the biggest like I don't know. If
Look, I was 11 at the time. I can say it. She was hot. Okay, like I was 11.
Well, I'm saying
11-year-old
me too.
me.
I'm saying like
She was hot,
but she was like an icon, right? So the fact that they were able to get her to do this was like a big deal for the show. But I'm saying like I think now in 2025, like they're not getting a 17-year-old to do a sketch like this because just like they wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. If this was done on her second or third time on the show, I would have much
when she turned 18.
Yeah, honestly, like I mean, I know it's
literally
just a number, and there's mature 17-year-olds and immature 22-year-olds. I get all that, but there is something to this that is just really. I mean, this is a time when the Olsen twins, they had the damn clock on the internet. When are they going to turn 18? Like so, and they leaned heavily into that when they hosted SNL. So
wait, what are you talking about?
So they had been on TV since they were infants. And early on the internet, they had a clock counting down the minutes until the Olsen twins turned 18. So they would be.
Ew, that's gross.
Yeah,
also,
I mean,
they're not even that cute. Like that, really?
Okay,
like,
well, TJ, come on. Okay, all right.
Not really.
This is during the time when people thought like a white girl with a flat ass was like the beauty standard. Like
this is
like,
we're 2.5 hours into this. Let's
like,
keep going.
Okay. I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah, no, I need the Debbie Downer.
I want jeans that fall off my butt. Like just oh god.
It was a different time. Anyways, let's keep going. So we're gonna get one more live sketch before the music performance. This is a Riding with Billy Joel. So I mean, Horatio all over this episode plays Billy Joel, who recently I think got into some like drunk driving situation, and he's going to drive the other women in the cast and basically take them to a party at Richard Simmons' house in the Hamptons, and there's going to be mailboxes flying everywhere. And I think people do like this sketch, and it's pretty like fun for Horatio. It's just Horatio nonsense. Like I think it's one of those things that like if you're watching this again chronologically, like I think this is the point for me at least where Horatio does definitely like tires on me, so it's hard for me to appreciate him and the things that I do enjoy more. But I think this is maybe better received than some of the other stuff we're going to get from him. Anything you guys got here?
I mean, just the mailbox, Horatio, one of his better moments, getting that, because the women in the car actually scream because they can't get the mailbox out of the way. And he jumps out of the car, hits it with the beer bottle and gets it out of the way. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. I don't know that SNL would do something like this today in such a mean-spirited, somebody who just suffered through substance abuse. So I don't know. Again, different time. I think it's pretty funny, though.
Yeah. Also, great stuff from Usher. I mean, tonight's musical performances from all of the episodes we saw, fantastic. So Usher's going to be from Yeah and Burn, and obviously Yeah was like a huge song at the time. Even Burn was also really big. So there's that. Weekend. Yeah, go ahead,
John. This is the only time in SNL history where an artist performs the top two songs of the year on the Billboard charts in the same.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, number one and number two in 2004.
Incredible fun fact there from Bill Kenny. So weekend update with Tina and Jimmy. So we're headed towards the end of Jimmy Fallon's career on the show. So it's one of the last updates for him. We're gonna have a couple of interesting moments here. So number one is Horatio is gonna come on and play as Jorge Rodriguez character, is gonna do the list. So I don't know that we need to talk about that, but there is a moment in this episode that most people will never remember. But if you go back and you watch this, okay, so I'll try and set this up the best I can. Jimmy Fallon is about to tell a joke about Donald Trump marrying Melania. So that's like takes you back to a place in time when this is happening. And he says, the joke basically is somewhere in the world, his fourth wife was just born. as he's trying to tell this joke, someone from the top deck yells to Jimmy on live TV, yells like, Jimmy. And then Jimmy actually, instead of ignoring him, like responds to him and is like, hey buddy, can't talk now, I'm doing a show. And it is like one of the rare times in SNL history that like, not like, I guess there's like the Sharon Stone like protest moment, but it's like really one of the rare times ever that like an audience member like full on interrupts a bit. It was fascinating to rewatch this one, TJ.
Yeah, no, I agree because as I'm watching it, I'm like, wait a minute, was that a thing? Did they do that just to say the "I hate it when my father drinks" line? I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that like so? Like myself watching it, like for that scene that for the first time, I was like, that was interesting. So yeah, it was like definitely like a fun little thing to learn that like somebody was so bold. And then I did look up and I Googled and then apparently there was somebody on like Reddit who said that like I don't know if it was Reddit or somewhere else, or somebody said that like I was near a guy who was in the standby line and who was saying and talking that he was gonna do this, that he was gonna interrupt Jimmy while live on air. Again, it's some random dude on the internet, just like we're random dudes on the internet. Who fucking knows if that's true? But the fact that it did happen live on air was like definitely very interesting. Like that was because they could have just easily dubbed that line out and Jimmy could have ignored it. But fascinating.
Yeah, it is really a fascinating moment to get to see live, Bill.
Yes, it is. And John, I think another category that you should have gotten my predictions for is how many times we're going to hear that orange motherfucker's name on an episode of this show when he's not even president. I think this makes 4 weeks in a row. And it's not, we haven't even covered a Trump era episode as far as the presidency. Here he is again, talking about his immigrant wife.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TJ.
Oh, the fact that this is about Melania.
Yeah.
The fact that there's a joke about Trump getting married to Melania when we watch this, jarring. That was jarring.
It just becomes a really interesting moment that the listeners have guided us to rewatch. So that's interesting. I think I can run through the rest of this rundown pretty simply. I mean, Club Tracks is a Maya and Fred piece where they're doing some accents and they're talking about lesbian, performers and stuff like that.
It's literally just Deep House Dish. Like that's literally what it is.
No, don't slander Deep House Dish.
Has been, huh?
No, I will not take any Deep House Dish slander. This is way.
No, I like Deep House Dish, but like obviously this came before it. But like it's funny because I'm like, oh, this must be where they got Deep House Dish from.
That's possible. That is possible. Yeah, that's fair.
There's a lot of the bones in that.
Yeah, we'll see the debut of it's Caitlin, the Amy Poehler character here that I absolutely love. I think she's so fantastic in this, and probably my favorite Horatio thing that he does, where he plays opposite of Amy Poehler's Caitlin. I think this was originally supposed to premiere in the Janet Jackson episode from earlier this season. That ends up in this one, but great to see Amy Poehler's Caitlin, and again, like a highlight in what is otherwise like a pretty difficult episode to rewatch and cover, I'd say. And then finally is going to end with more, again, the Horatio's all over this episode. It has to be like one of his most appeared episodes. I think he's in 7 sketches. He's going to play Ron Jeremy at the end of the night in the 17th annual Adult Movie Awards. So it's like just a really interesting one to talk about that. Again, if Debbie Downer doesn't exist in it, it's probably not on the countdown here. So let's just do some overall thoughts of the episode after having rewatched it. TJ, I will start with you.
Yeah, I definitely think, fellas, that you kind of gave me a good lead in here because while I did appreciate Miss Lohan and I had fun and I think she was very game, and I do think it was also a good first hosting stint. Let's not forget, I think Lindsay did do a great job here. And I think that is definitely an elevation. I think Horatio and Amy are having some particular fun here. But as for the sketches, and I think maybe Hogwarts, if we're looking at it in a less educated lens, I think maybe that is a reason that somebody would make a case for this being a strong episode. Like, if we're truly being unbiased, and by unbiased, I mean being creeps, then like I can see why somebody would make a case for this because there are things that do weave together well. I don't really know that much about Billy Joel. I know he has a couple of good songs, so I'm willing to bet that was like super high for some people. But in the Turlingtons, I think Turlingtons is actually a 10 out of 10. I think that's a solid that is a solid pre-tape. I think it's a very strong pre-tape. That's a great for like the commercial parody. So It's so interesting because I think we're all right, but I also think the listeners are right. I think it is logical that they would make a case for putting this episode is absolutely fucking lootly not over the Seth MacFarlane episode, but like I see where they were coming at. Like I see what they were going for. Honestly, the Alec episode is better. Like every episode we've reviewed is better than this episode.
Yeah, yes, I agree with you. I mean,
I would change the order. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Look, I think this is one of the better episodes of a pretty rough season. There's definitely there's definitely better episodes in season 29 that I can make an argument for as well. However, Bill, ultimately, I think Lindsay Lohan is a much better host than this episode gives her. I think that is, when you see her in the sketches, like clearly she's game for whatever, and she has a lot of fun with this. And it's no doubt that, they were very excited to bring her back for, I think almost, is it a couple years in a row after this, and then we'll take a little bit of break after that, obviously with Lindsay's situations outside of the show, but clearly she proves herself to be a really solid host here. And Debbie Downer is a no doubt all-time classic for me, the original one. So I can see it, I just don't always agree with it.
I don't agree with it either. And John, we haven't done a lot of sports metaphors this summer countdown, but like this would be the Debbie Downer would be like one of your players, going 6 for 6 and with 3 home runs, but the team loses 31-3, and you're like, that's one of the greatest games in our team's history. And you'd be like, what are you talking about? Just because of that guy? So no, there's 13 segments here, and like 3 of them are really good. Leave the Hogwarts out of it, of its time. That's fine. But like Club Tracks is terrible. Jared's Room, not great. The Porn Awards is just a crawl. Like there's just so much here that doesn't work. This is not just an instance of one dud. There's a lot of duds. So absolutely is way, way, way too high.
Yeah, and look, if you are listening and you voted for this one to be in the top 50, that's totally fine. Like everyone watches SNL differently, and I know
is it. Let me stop.
No, I think it is. I think it is because I totally think that the way that people view the show is vastly different from one person to the next. And in the case of like being able to discern one episode from another, like not everyone has the encyclopedic memory to figure out like all 1,000 episodes, and like, but they may remember that Lindsay Lohan was a really good host, and they remember her first time hosting was really like well talked about. I have, if I talk to any of my friends who are more casual SNL fans about Lindsay Lohan's first time hosting SNL, they would probably tell me, oh yeah, I remember that. That was a great episode. So because of that, I feel that is here on the countdown. I just think the purposes of us doing this show here is to break things down in more detail so that we can really figure out, does this deserve to be here or not? And in this case, I think there's an argument, but I think there's a lot of arguments against it as well. And that's, where you get some interesting discussion here on the podcast. Okay. Final piece of business here for the night is we're going to show you the rankings so far now with these 16 episodes. I'm going to show you where I have these new 4 on my rankings, and then Bill will also show his, and we're going to ask TJ to choose which list he feels is better overall so far. So here we go. We have the new 4 episodes added in at 38, 37, 36, and 35. I put Alec Baldwin and the B-52s number 1 at the top of my board. I feel that is the absolute best episode we've talked about so far in these first 16 episodes. I did put right below Sigourney Weaver. We talked about the last week, Timberlake and Lady Gaga, Christopher Walken and Foo Fighters, and Jerry Seinfeld and Annie Lennox. Those are my top 5 right now. Seth MacFarlane and Frank Ocean comes in at number 6. I think it's a really solid episode. There's a lot of great things. It doesn't necessarily have the iconic moments. I think it's very similar to the Jerry Seinfeld episode. So 5, 6, I feel like that's the right place to have that episode. I got Shatner, Swayze, Baldwin from 24, Dag, Timberlake's Double Duty, Hathaway, Conan. And then at 14, I put Ryan Gosling and Chris Stapleton. Some really good moments, the Beavis and Butthead we talked about here. I think that first half is so good that it bumps it up. Right ahead of Michael Jordan's episode, which I do have at 15. So Gosling, then Michael Jordan, and then Lindsay Lohan and Usher is my bottom tier episode right now at number 16. Bill, where did you put your new 4?
Yeah, I've also got Baldwin in the number 1 slot that we spoke about tonight. Keep Sigourney at number 2. Timberlake and Lady Gaga at number 3, and MacFarlane is going to be 4 here. I disagree, John. There are iconic moments here. The puppet class is an all-time moment, along with a couple other great sketches. And then Walken at number 5, Patrick Swayze at number 6. I can barely read these.
Okay, no problem. You got Baldwin and Pavarotti next. Shatner, Dag, Conan, Seinfeld, JT, Hathaway, MJ, and then your bottom two.
Bottom two are
episodes from tonight.
Gosling at number 15 and Lohan at number 16. As we talked about, more about one sketch, more memorable episode than a greatest episode. So they've got to be at the bottom for me.
So you really feel like Gosling should be under Michael Jordan?
At this point, yes, I do. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. TJ, which list do you like better right now?
I really like Bill's list more. I would say it's largely because of like he put MacFarlane like up pretty high. I think that's that. But to be honest, I like that Timberlake Gaga episode a lot. It features one of our. Was Andy gone? Was Andy gone by this time?
The Timberlake Gaga episode? No, he's still on the show. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's one of the. I remember because it was one of the last tracks that we got for the.
Yeah,
Long
we got
Island.
3-way.
So, yeah. Oh, how could I forget? So that plus I've been listening to Mayhem a lot lately. And that album's strong as fuck. So that's really what's really gonna win me. But you guys are making me want to check out the Sigourney Weaver episode. If you both are ranking it so high, Jesus, this must be really good. Yeah, but Bill, because he put some respect on MacFarlane's name.
All right, I still got some respect there.
You're dead to me, John.
All right, I got Walken and Seinfeld above him, but it's still really close. All right, so there you go. Those are our lists right now. Let us know in the comments or in the chat which one you think is better so far. As far as Bill's predictions are concerned, so we're gonna add a number right there for the 5 timers because we had an appearance from Alec Baldwin. So that is he's now at 5 out of 10 for the 5 timers. We also had a premiere in this episode. You're now at a 3 out of 5 premieres so far that we get. So we'll see if you get those last 2 for the next one. No finales tonight. No episodes hosted by cast members. So Bill, you're still you're gonna need 13 episodes hosted by former cast members. Do you think we're gonna get to that?
Let's call the cast members DOA at this point. Boy, did I overshoot that. I mean, I really thought that we would have seen something. I mean, from either your boy Fallon by this point, or Fred, Bill Hader's episodes. So haven't seen anything yet.
35 episodes to go, and those are more recent episodes that people like, that people have seen. Like honestly, I think you're probably going to be front loaded. John has seen the list, but and don't give it away, John. But I think you guys are probably going to be front loaded with more recent shit. Honestly.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not giving it away. Also, we have some other seasons that were added. So we added an episode from season 49. We had an episode from season 15 and season 29. So now we're up to 13 seasons on the countdown so far that we have covered. So
what a great spread of episodes this was.
Yeah, good spread from an interesting week to talk about the episodes, but still, I love the breadth of what we've been talking about here so far. So really, really fun edition of the countdown here. So great to be back with you once again on this Monday night. And of course, we will have 4 more episodes next week where we go through 34, 33, 32, and 31, and then head to the top 30 where we will switch over to 3 episodes a week after that. And of course, I'll be back in a couple weeks for that. But Bill is in great hands. Next week, he's going to be alongside Mike Murray and Andrew Dick to go through the next 4 episodes on the countdown. So that will be a lot of fun to listen to that episode when I get a chance. And I just want to thank everyone who hung out with us on this Monday night. I know we were on a little bit later on the show here tonight, but just such a great live crowd to talk through these 4 episodes and the fascinating discussion we had about all of them. TJ, thanks so much for joining us here on the show tonight. Anything that you want to plug to the listeners?
I mean, this was such a fun, different type of coverage for me to do than like hot take or round. Like this was like so much fun, and it just felt like I got to be a little bit more like precise. I really enjoyed this. I would actually really enjoy like doing this again. And this was, I don't know, I felt like you kind of helped give me a little, it was almost like you guys were giving me a history lesson at the same time. It was like you were trying to make me learn, which is offensive, but I'll allow it. If listeners, if you want to hear any more of what TJ has to say, I have 2 podcasts. Rabbit Trail, that's RABID. It was a 150 episode podcast that I did that was 15 minutes at a time. My friends and I talking about topics all the way from crying to video games to emotional topics to talking about food. And I also did a podcast called the Team Trashcast during the pandemic, which is just my friends and I trying to make sense of our 20s at the time. And a little fun fact, we did write, sometimes we would write fake commercials for it. It was much more of a long form show. But again, that's Rabbit Trail and Team Trashcast if you want to listen to podcasts. I'm taking a big time break from podcasting outside of the SNL network. So those are little fun projects if you ever did want more. TJ in your life. And you can find me at King Compliment on Instagram.
Bill Kenny, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us as well. Anything you would like to say to the listeners?
Yeah, just excited to get through this list. I love the guests we've had every week. TJ was fantastic as always. And John, best of luck this weekend. And
Thank you.
Mazel tov, and excited to hold the helm next week and trash you in the final segment.
Thank you. I will see you on the other side. Any advice for me as a middle-aged man who's been married for a while?
I will send you.
This man is in a successful marriage and has a beautiful family. And Bill is like definitely the example of like, it just seems like he's a good dad. You know how fucking hard that is to find.
I need to learn from the great Bill Kenny.
Thank you, my friend. I
put some respect
that.
on his name. Also, congrats, John. By the way,
thank you,
John. I'm just going to send you the Vince Vaughn sketch from his episode to tell you how to be married.
Sounds good. All right. I look forward to it. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone hanging out here. Of course, we just released everything you need to know about SNL season 22. So that's available now on the YouTube channel. If you haven't checked that one out yet, lots of discussion about the distinguished alumni series from that season and some back and forth tension between a couple cast members. So really good stuff before we head towards season 23 coming out on the channel, hopefully very soon for you. So I'll talk about that when I'm back. But yeah, just thank you to latenighter.com for being our presenting partner for the show, for Bill and TJ for joining us here, and everyone in the live chat. You can follow us at the SNL Network on all social platforms, where we will post the cards that we have up here on screen. And if you are a patron of the show, we will have these episodes that we talked about here tonight up for you for the next week, so you can watch them and listen to our discussion about them at the same time. So looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts in the comments as we head towards next week. On behalf of Bill Kenny and TJ Randolph, my name is John Schneider from the Saturday Night Network, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.